Too late now because we're live.
The one thing.
That thing.
It's not a secret.
Hey, everybody.
You made an announcement that you went and...
With Dottie?
Oh, yeah, I'm running for state delegate, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know anything about...
Yeah, so I'm running for state delegate.
We spoke for 4 hours the other night. Just nothing.
Well, state delegate's it's a fun role, but I had a little fun with that announcement because I like to trip people up and be a little funny with it. So I enjoyed myself quite a lot.
That was pretty. You tripped me up. I was like, what?
I instantly got calls. I mean, within seconds, I instantly got calls, which was fun. It was super, super fun. But yeah, I'm running for state delegate, so which will be good. We'll go up to the convention and have a conversation up there and do our due diligence as good Republicans and cast our votes for those people down here. So,
welcome back, Joe.
Well, thank you.
Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you.
Travis.
Welcome back, Chad.
It's like you never left.
Yeah.
Wow. So we've had such great conversations individually as a unit, and I think we've committed to maybe talking every couple of weeks or so as a unit, and as the podcast expands, and hopefully we have another studio, I can do a little bit more. Because I don't want to focus just on what we're trying to accomplish. There are other things that I'm trying to accomplish with the program, but I appreciate you guys very much for taking the time to come again, and we're going to get into some awesome topics. So welcome everyone, Unite the Divided podcast number 80. We didn't have the AI music this week for some reason. The software it's in a weird spot, and it didn't give me anything that I liked at all. So I just canceled that part of it. We do have some AI stuff to talk about. But I think right out of the gate, it seems to me, we were just talking about the snow. And so we didn't do a podcast last week because the weather was bad. Travis was going to come up and we were just going to do a solo, which we do, and I have fun with it. But it just, I don't think your wife would have liked you probably coming out, and, my wife didn't mind that I didn't do it. So anyway, so obviously we had what we've called Snowmageddon, but I do want to bring up some issues that have become really relevant to me. When COVID kind of came out, to me, it shined a spotlight on several things that I think most people didn't see, didn't understand, and it just kind of laid it out there and exposed it, and you couldn't ignore it anymore. This has done that for me because in all my time here, and we have had some big snows. I mean, the record back in 2004 or whatever it was, it's like 21 inches. And I understand it got warm and stuff melted a little faster, but it became very apparent that we have nowhere close to the number of snowplows that we need in the city. At least things still look bad, and it's almost 2 weeks later. And so that's something that I feel like we need to talk about, and why it's that way. I'm not here to blame anyone about it. We're here to make solutions happen, I hope, or at least come up with ideas that might become solutions. And so what are y'all's thoughts? I mean, I know both of you have been kind of engaged with it, and whoever wants to kind of take the lead with it.
Go ahead. So it's kind of interesting you bring that up, because I went to our county council meeting tonight before coming here, and the county garage guy was there talking about it, because I guess, obviously a lot of our citizens have kind of complained, because this has hung around a lot longer than normal. So it was interesting. He said that the county itself operates about 600 lane miles of road with 13 trucks. Now think about that, 13 trucks to do 600 miles. And he said, that first day or two, it was 24/7. And of course, at some point, you got to send somebody home. You can't. We're not robots.
Yeah, this is not an attack on the drivers and their work at all.
And they asked the question about the city, because I believe the city of Evansville has 1,000+ lane miles of road. Throw Lloyd Expressway out, that's state. But and I believe he thinks, he didn't quote it, but 9 trucks for the city, like full-size trucks. So obviously that brings a lot of concerns for some neighbors, right? Like, we can't get to subdivisions because primary and secondary roads are first, right? For emergency vehicles, I mean, we were seeing ambulances get stuck as it was. So, primary, secondary, city this size, we've got to keep Mets running to the best of our ability. So those are, snow routes. But a lot of people get confused too, because you drive by a subdivision that may have an HOA and their properties are maintained, so they're cleaned. So you see that and you're like, well, they're cleaning who lives in there that's getting this cleaned off, right? That's human reaction. So I kind of played around and just thought of some ideas of kind of like a snow militia for a city like Evansville. We can't compete with like a Chicago or a New York where we consistently get heavy lake effect snow. We got to have a plan. Although it looks like New York kind of failed a little bit this year as well.
We might not get snow for another 5 years.
Right, right.
Yeah, exactly.
But, kind of a militia where we kind of contract out with some, landscape crews or whatever, or maybe somebody in the neighborhood has a tractor and, we'll pay your fuel or whatever. Or here are some sector salt stations to where maybe kind of like if there's a neighborhood association, maybe there's an appointed snow crew member or the president, and they work together, distribute that salt to the best of their ability. Because the reality of it is, like, they try to clear the primary and secondary roads. I learned this today, like down to pavement the best they can, because they are heavy treating with salt and the brine, and realistically we can't do that in neighborhoods. So the reason why, like, they may go through a neighborhood, but it's not going to be clean to pavement because they're not putting salt down, because we only have so much.
Well, let me stack right on top of what you just said, because we didn't talk about this at all. I don't know that I read anything that you. So I was thinking the same thing, but it's like, so how many fleet vehicles do we have in the city of Evansville? How many fairly expensive vehicles do we have, 4x4s or bigger trucks that we could put blades on the front of and use those vehicles for multiple purpose, not just the water department or, I see
the levy authority, whatever, yeah,
whatever. Or I understand Republic is not they're not owned by the city; they're outsourced. But big track.
Right.
Why can't we put scrapers on
skid steers, whatever?
Yeah. Whatever we can get a hold of. Keep going. I'm sorry, I was thinking the same thing. I know there's a bunch of vehicles parked downtown that aren't doing anything right now.
Right.
Everybody, so.
And that's kind of where my mind went with kind of like a emergency. When this once a decade snow hits us, and this time it just happened to be the perfect storm where it got real cold, it stayed real cold, it hung around, and we're still facing it. Mm-hmm. But just an idea, is it a perfect solution? No, but it's a plan and it's a step forward in like what we're doing now, just having a conversation of what can we do better next time? Because it essentially shut the city down for a week and a half. We weren't doing trash pickup, so that causes rodent problems, unsightly, whatever. And then school, which that's a whole nother topic. But, when they did decide to open back up, there's kids walking down the street.
Because they still are in front of Memorial High School. Yeah.
Which part of that is property owners don't realize that it's their responsibility to clean off sidewalks.
Yeah, but
but you can't when there's 3 foot of plowed snow on it.
Well,
too.
people, right. That's the thing, where there's so much snow there. Right. Like, I'm in decent shape compared to probably a lot of people that are a little older and whatever. Like, shoveling this snow was different. And look, I shoveled it as it was snowing to stay on top of it. Because as soon as it got a little wet, it just got so heavy. It's like you're going to break your back or your shovel or have a heart attack.
And maybe that's where we implement a small fleet of snow blowers that go out into neighborhoods for sidewalk maintenance by a neighborhood president or what have you. Just solution based, other than
So, well, I want to come to Joe, but I thought about this in the same capacity of other emergency management things. Like, we really don't, our emergency management people don't really communicate. Here's what we're going to do. Here's a scenario that might happen. There is no communication. Like, what if the lights go out for more than 3 days? People are going to start going crazy. There is no advanced planning for that.
Right.
Or maybe there is. And we're not lucky enough to hear about it.
Realistically, retail-wise, there's only so many generators available in the city of Evansville. And when a snowstorm like what we just had hit, and it hit several states, wide swath, you can't get shovels and snow blowers and salt because everybody needs it, within your region. So it becomes a logistics thing.
When was that ice storm? 09? 08?
We were in North Carolina.
Because I remember my house lost power for like a week.
Yeah,
I ended up going back to Tell City. I stayed with my mom for a week because my house didn't have power.
One of the things that we did in the oil and energy space is we understand emergency preparedness. What all the cell phone towers run on generators. Those generators run on fuel. We have to get fuel to those generators when the power is out. And speaking of that storm, I was working at an oil distributor, energy distributor at that time. And what we did is we went and got other trucks from other places. We had a shared services contract, a cooperative contract that said, in the event that a disaster happens, this is how much I'm going to pay for these assets. This is how I'm going to deploy them. This is how I'm going to pay the people that are running them. And this is exactly what you're going to do with them. We had a week. We knew this weather was coming for a week. We did absolutely nothing. The county did a great job. And it has nothing to do with the people out there doing the work. It has everything in the world to do with the lack of preparation that we had getting it done. We could have been buying road treatment. We could have been buying salt. We could have been bringing these vehicles in from all over the place.
We still don't have turn lanes open on main thoroughfares. Like Diamond Avenue, you have to turn right.
School was out for 6 days. 6 days school was out for this. This is ridiculous. We should have had, at the very least, cooperative agreements with these organizations, with all these entities within a 200-mile radius. That is not hard to do.
So did we have that in 2004? I don't know the difference. I mean,
the energy companies we stepped in and worked with the emergency management agency and said, this is what we're going to do to make sure that we have communication. The very first thing you do in an emergency event or in a theater of effort like that is to get and maintain communication. Without that, you're sunk. You can't do anything. So we went out and fueled up cell phone towers. We bought generators, placed them in cell phone towers, and fueled them up. Kept them fueled in the ice storm. It was extremely difficult work, but we had a plan in place that allowed us to do this work. We had a plan in place sitting there. It was tried, true, and tested long before it was ever needed. The city reacts. All we do is react. If we have a disaster of any sort, it's a reaction. We have no plan whatsoever that's proactive. And it's unfortunate because it places the citizens in a bad place. It places the people doing the work in a very, very bad place because it's oftentimes dangerous, ill thought out, and hard to implement.
Yeah, because a county truck actually did. I mean, the snow was so bad that you couldn't see like ditch lines and everything. But a county truck did actually roll
over,
and that driver's out for a while. Had a pretty serious injury. So,
if we had a plan and implemented, or a plan that was ready to be implemented, this would be a totally different game. Businesses do it. I promise you, there's a host of businesses that manage critical infrastructure. I know all the energy company, the petroleum distributors, CenterPoint, all of these people had a plan. They have a plan. And the second this happens, they're just turning the plan on. Our city does not do that. We don't stockpile things. We don't proactively look at the weather a week in advance and say, hey, something bad's coming. We should probably be paying attention. And the next thing we're going to hear is when the springtime storms come. And it's just in a 20-year cycle. 20 years ago, we had this same kind of weather. We're going to have the same kind of weather in this spring. We're going to have limbs down. We're going to have some pretty volatile activity, I would imagine. Maybe not, hopefully not. But if it does, we have no plan to work with it whatsoever.
I mean,
weather happens.
This is going to happen.
We live in a city, and we're in Tornado Alley. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we need to be prepared to handle this. And we react. We don't proactively put things in place so that we just flip the switch and it works. We never, ever do that here.
Which, I think, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I mean, people have been taught to really not rely on themselves for a lot of things. Our society's gotten very dependent on, or, I don't even want to say lazy. That's not the right word. We're just thinking everything's going to be there when we need it. And when you talk about survival to anybody, or putting stuff aside for emergencies, people are like, "Come on! I mean, worst thing it's going to do, power's going to go out. You next day you'll be fine." I'm like,
Not necessarily.
well, the younger generations they haven't experienced something like what the ice storm. Like they don't, and until you're in it, you don't. There's no training for it, so you're like you got to learn to survive.
We used to teach that.
Yeah.
We used to teach people how to be, and we would hand it down generationally. Right. This is what happens when you don't have power. This is what happens when a bad storm comes through. This is what happens when the snow hits. And now we're all shocked and shaken when it does, and our city government's incapable of even managing it. I spent most of that weekend running medical personnel back and forth to hospitals. Yeah. There were very few snowplows out because we have very few snowplows to use. It wasn't because those people were not doing the work. I think it was amazing that there were various organizations that got together with weather-capable vehicles that made that happen.
I know there's like a Jeepers group.
That was part of that. That's what I was part of. That's what I was working with. But they ran people on their own time, doing it themselves to make sure that people had medical personnel to hospitals and the hospital personnel can get back home to their families.
I'm not a big fan of FEMA for obvious reasons, and the whole thing that happened in North Carolina is still, but I mean,
look at New Orleans.
Yeah. So, but they should be there for a reason. If we are still giving them money, which I know we are, it's like, why do we not have fleet management that, like, if a certain area is hit, you can basically, like you said, we rely on corporations and partnerships and private thing to, everybody's got to do their own thing and cities got to do their own thing. I understand that. And trust me when I tell you, I don't want the federal government involved any more than necessary. I absolutely am not that guy. But you do need, the citizens need to be assured that they can have access to a road to get to a hospital or get to their...
That the ambulances could come and retrieve you if you need to.
And we understand that if a nasty storm hits, it might take a few days to dig us out. I mean, it's okay.
Right. Yeah.
But not a week and a half.
Right. But I think also, too, that's where it kind of tie in with, the COVID thing. That's where we have to be responsible citizens and not overreact and panic by, oh my gosh, I got to have
17 gallons of milk.
Yeah, I got to have a cart full of milk. And why isn't my dead end street, plowed that not a school bus ever comes down? I mean, like it should be right now. And I kind of shout out to Alfonso, I pushed back on a post he made too, but he was right. We used to take that responsibility and do that, cleaning, helping neighbors out. But that said, like those initial 24 hours of snow, there were people out driving around just for fun.
There were, yeah.
And they're in the way. And you're entitled to that, but just because you can doesn't mean you should, right?
The cop said not in a state of emergency.
Yeah, in a state of emergency, you can get in trouble for that. But I would also say that I was out on the west side picking these people up, and one of the coolest things I saw was these farmers running the tractors, dropping the blade, and clearing out the road.
You didn't even think of farmers. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got the equipment.
They 100% do. They were doing that. They were running and keeping these roads and these neighborhoods clean so people could get in and out.
Right.
I watched them pulling people out just over and over.
I was at Toyota.
Patrolling around.
I was at night shift at Toyota whenever the big storm hit in 2004. Mm-hmm. And the whole plant got basically shut down. Mm-hmm. And there was people lined up all the way around trying to get out. And there was trucks jackknifed on the off and on ramps. And guess who got us out?
Farmers.
The farmers came, and it was freaking amazing.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we
start lugging down the highway or something, like 10 of them?
My issue with this, and this is what kind of cabbage on to what you were saying. Why do we not have? And I stand on top of this, and it can solve so many problems if it was leveraged effectively. Why do we not have public-private partnerships with the agriculture community that surrounds us, with the Westside Nut Club, which is one of the most prolific volunteerism organizations in our tri-state area? Right. Why haven't we worked together to put together a plan that leverages these people with these assets? Right. Who do you think's plowing off all these driveways? Who do you think's plowing off all these parking lots? It's the Westside Nut Club. It's all the farmers that are sitting there making dollars to do this. We could co-op this so easily with these people.
Well, and realistically to that, you could even have individuals that have lawn tractors. They make, they're not industrial, but they make small scale, I mean, again,
there
be
are some kind of
industrious.
issues getting those to places. I mean, you want
Right.
to have you want to have someone who's proficient in running
Right,
those. I mean,
Well, and there is also insurance.
Yes.
Right.
And I mean, you get attorneys involved, getting insurance companies
Right.
involved. So I
But
think
farmers, the agrarian community, has a licensure to do this stuff.
Yes.
They have
Yeah.
the capability of doing it.
I mean,
And so-
I'm with you. Like if it's a community or something,
Right, mhm.
absolutely go out and help your neighbors. I mean,
Yes.
we should do that. We should teach. We should have humanities again. We should do
Yes.
that for.
You brought that up earlier. You were talking about the snow of 2004. I remember at the time I lived in an apartment complex. There was probably 16 or 20 apartments there in Tell City that I lived at, and we all got together. Well, able bodies got together, and we all dug out one vehicle for every apartment. Like everybody, like 10 of us dig this vehicle out. Okay, it can get out. Okay, where's your vehicle? Okay, dig that vehicle out. And we actually
work together.
work together to do it. And I mean, it's
Probably brought you together. You had a lot of laughs.
we did.
Quite a
It
few
wasn't
beers,
too bad.
maybe.
probably some beers.
We couldn't get some beer at the time.
Oh, you
but
didn't-
I had some. But I did have somebody take me down. So my grandfather
you were too young.
owns a division of Culligan, and so he had a crap ton of salt in the warehouse.
Nice.
I called him and say, "Hey, Grandpa, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna get some. I'll keep cash on the counter. We're gonna go get 30 bags, 50 bags of rock salt or whatever." And a guy in a 4x4, we took it down there, or went down there and picked it all up. So I mean, there was a little bit of. Thankfully, I had some of the connections that I did to be able to do that, but there's no reason why every single small community, like neighborhood, couldn't kind of everybody
That's
get
the
together and
thing.
dig out each house.
If we had, that's a great point. If we had the neighborhood associations, we leveraged those things and said, look, we're going to have a neighborhood response for every neighborhood in the city. Here's your go-to. Here's your guy that's going to show up with a 4x4 and a plow that's going to plow your road.
Right.
It's not going to be great, but you're going to be able to get to the hospital, and the EMS will be able to get to you if something bad happens. How is that not happening right now? We used to call that the Civil Corps. Wasn't that what we called it?
I think so.
That
Sounds familiar.
why are we not? It's because in the 60s we knew how to do stuff.
Right.
And we didn't rely on the government for everything. We said, oh, you know what, government? Great. Glad you're here. We're going to take care of this. This is how we're going to do
Yeah,
this.
we got you. We'll call you.
Yeah, we'll call you when we need you. You know who does this the best? Florida and the Cajun Navy. Those people do it the best I've ever seen. If we leverage that model here, problems would start to disappear. When we have EMS issues, problems would start to disappear. Why don't we have a Civil Corps that pops up and says, hey, you know what? I got a side-by-side with the snowplow. I'm going to hit this whole neighborhood. No problem. This is your guy. This is your neighborhood guy. You're going to come up and do this. Here's the two neighborhood guys. They're going to do this. That I don't understand.
Randy
why we're
down
not
there,
doing
he's got a Kubota. Have him bring it out here.
Exactly. I mean, honest to God, that is how it used to be done. When I was in Mount Vernon in 2004 snow, that's exactly who's got a tractor nearby. Here, all of a sudden, here comes a farmer with a great big tractor clearing out the snow so people would get
Yeah.
Yeah.
the town open up again. It took them like less than half a day, and that town was open.
And I mean, it's hard work, but you do get to, like you said, I mean, I probably got closer with my neighbors
100%.
doing that than I ever did any other moment that I lived there.
But I do think the right answer is that civil neighborhood focused core. You get those people focused back on helping all the neighbors. You knock this out. You have your neighborhood group. You have a emergency response. And I'm down on Albert Boulevard, and every single time we have a storm, there's limbs that come down on that boulevard, and it keeps the EMS from coming down there. And we have a
lot of very
neighborhood.
trees.
Oh, we are really well established trees, but we have a neighborhood full of older people, and it scares them knowing that they can't get EMS in there. And sometimes they need to be there. So I'm out there with a couple of my neighbors. We cut up all the trees out of the road and make sure EMS can come through there. That's just what we do. That's what every neighbor should be able to activate in that way. It's not hard, and many hands make light work. And if we would just organize in that way and let the citizens help the citizens in the neighborhood in which they live, this problem would be solved. This would not be. We wouldn't have this. It'd be done. It would already be
Well, I
done.
mean, I think this is such a rabbit hole. We could talk about this for the entire evening, I swear. We talked about it a little bit with leadership funnel, leadership silos, and the lack of, kind of where we're going with our education systems. I mean, basically, our kids up till today, we're still being taught like it's the industrial age. So, I mean, they're being taught to sit down, listen to instruction, answer A, B, C, or D, and whatever. There's really no critical thinking being taught. There hasn't been, anyway. I wrote them down, the leadership, speech, debate. Like, we need we're sitting around having this conversation, and maybe we can solve this problem in the next 5 years, 10 years. But we have a leadership vacuum, so we need kids who are able to have these conversations in the future. And my concern with AI and social media and basically our kids sitting behind screens all the time is they're not even having these conversations. And I feel like we have to, as far as our education system locally specifically, we need to talk about civics conversations again. We need to talk about debate. We need to talk about the community stuff that we're talking about right now, because we're so insulated and isolated, and that's not going to get better. And if AI does what Elon Musk says it's going to do and replace so many jobs, we should be training and doing these things more. We need to be more in humanities. We need to be, neighborhood associations. We need to be working together to make our communities better. I mean, if we're going to have a lot more free time on our hand, at least it seems like we're going to have it.
I think it's going to change the jobs. I don't know that people are going to be out of jobs. I think they're going to have an elevated.
That's a rolling debate. I mean, I think that's a nuanced conversation we could have.
There are certain skills, interpretive skills, that just require a human mind. You just can't get there. It's the difference between human analysis and intuition. That intuition will never be part of AI. It just is not possible. It's a human gut reaction. And there are people that are very, very skilled at understanding their intuition. They read trends very rapidly.
Sure.
They identify opportunities in situations. Their situational awareness is that primed and ready that what we think is an instantaneous reaction is actually just a very fast processing of a number of inputs all at once, and that's their gut reaction. AI can't do that.
Do you think that's a personality type, or do you think that? I mean, so how does a person get?
I think it's a natural group of gifts all at once, and it becomes a skill.
Well, think about when you and I go out to lunch. We both fight over the seat facing the door because we know we want to be able to be prepared for something that's going like we were thinking about that.
Situational awareness.
Situational awareness. Or my wife likes to tell me, she's like, I count on you to like know where the exits are, to know if somebody's coming in the door, if somebody's holding a gun, whatever it is. I'm just enjoying my meal. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So, but I mean, like kind of as he said, you're biting or you're chewing on a lot of inputs. But you don't really realize it necessarily. You just train yourself to understand.
I think a lot of it's how you're wired too. You're just hereditarily wired to process certain things quicker or recognize things quicker. I don't necessarily know that it's a learned or trained behavior.
I think there's a number of gifts that you naturally have, and then you start combining that into a skill set.
Right.
I think anything on its own, being highly observant, that is just a gift that you can hone into a skill. Combining that with situational awareness, understanding the trends that are going on around you from the micro to the macro, and doing that very, very rapidly and crafting a solution in real time, and then running that solution through your head 3 or 4 times to create multiple solutions all at once, and then picking the right one very quickly, all within a span of seconds. That is a skill. That is a skill that you develop. It's a muscle that you exercise from a very early age all the way
probably without even knowing
it. It's because, and that's why people say, "Oh well, he knows what's going on," or "She's very smart," or "She has great instincts."
You've got a good read on people, things like that. Yeah.
My feminist friends are going to hate me for saying this, but I mean, there are things that guys just naturally do better than women. And what you said with the guarding, looking at the door, situational awareness is built into us. We are the hunters and the protectors. Generally, that's the way things have been.
To be fair, though, there are things that women do better than men.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, 100%.
I just got to say that.
Most of the other stuff. I
want to keep our liurners that are female. So
no.
Keep going.
We have a lot of female listeners, and that's why I said. But most of our female listeners, I don't know if they're, quote unquote feminists. But what I will say is, I just say, I feel like the kind of the war between men and women and the demasculating of manly roles to me is harming us a little bit in here. Like
100% agree.
We don't have guys stepping up in places where they just should. Like guys used to just step up and do stuff because it needed to get done, and now it's like, can I? Yeah, can I? Should I do that? I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone. No, I mean, I'm sorry. Sometimes people just need to be offended, and if you can't be offended, you.
Do you know what I used to? I had a really great mentor. He's passed away. He told me, if you're not offending,
There's more water there if you guys need.
Oh, thank you. He's like, if you don't offend somebody in a polite way, at least every so often, you're not living life right. And he's not wrong. And I said, what do you mean by polite offense? He's like, are you challenging people's assumptions? Are you helping them grow? That's politely offending them. He said, don't call people names. You don't insult them. You just challenge them. I say, help me understand your position. Defend that position from me. Justify it. Defend your assumption. That's a critical thinking skill. That's exercising that muscle. That's debate. That is friendly, respectful debate. And we've fallen out. That's fallen outside of vogue because people don't really want that. Leadership, and I use that term loosely, they do not want us talking and coming up with solutions. They want, why do you think we have all these little social media things? Why do you think we have all these little mechanisms on our phone? They want to lead us to the conclusion.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The education
system keep
system,
us divided.
The education system is still based in the industrial age, and they didn't want people out there solving their own problems and doing things better. They wanted you to do the things that you were assigned to do, and do it. Like that's the way what the education system is built on top of is getting people to listen to authority, to do the things that they're supposed to do. I mean, I don't know what school you went to, but this is general public education. Mm-hmm. Is you're basically taught to listen and to obey, and to trust the people in the white coats, and to trust the science, and to trust this, and just there's somebody smarter out there doing it and thinking about it, so you don't have to. Just go do the thing that you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And that's generally why we got caught in a trap with COVID. It was like people weren't really thinking for themselves. They weren't standing up to people when they saw enough things going on wrong around them. They were still afraid to say anything because people are calling somebody names. Oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. I mean, trust me, I've heard this more than most over the last 5 years. And so it creates a thick skin, and I'm not an I told you so guy. But at the same time, I'm like, I've seen this before. You talked about the pattern recognition. I'm like, this smells just like that other thing. It looks different. It's dressed in it's got a different jacket on, but it's still the same thing.
It's when people tell you to stop asking questions, that's my first red flag. Yeah. Don't ask any more questions. Why don't you want me asking questions? Isn't science itself the process of asking questions to get to a answer?
There is no subtle science. There is no subtle science.
Science is ever evolving. It's constantly revolving into the next best thing. So I think when someone tells us, and I don't care what subject matter it is, stop asking questions. Stop looking here. Stop investigating. That's a red flag. Instantly, that all of my spidey senses turn on and
you don't need to worry about that.
And we've got it. We've got this under control. Trust the science. You know what I trust? Not that. And I don't care what it is, what science you're talking about, whatever the prescription they're trying to give me, I immediately start questioning. I'm built that way. My family, rightly or wrongly, we are full of extremely strong personalities. You know,
I know a few of them. I can attest.
I don't remember a time when we weren't constantly challenging assumptions in my family. I mean, hard challenges to assumptions. And we constantly had to defend them. My dad would ask, what do you think about this? And we would game on instantly. Or he'd say, this is the way this is. And he invited this. And my mother is the same way. She's probably the most intelligent person I know. And she is extremely, extremely good at defending her position. Extremely good at it. And if you won an argument with her, you felt like you won an Olympic gold medal because she's so good. So we would you're constantly refining and honing these skills. And I came out of a childhood with the capability of thinking, well, first of all, I thought everyone did that. So instantly.
I saw you looking at me whenever I said, you were like, not everybody thinks like I am. Like you are not. You're you, dude. You're not the same.
I came out of this family where we constantly challenging things, and so I went into college early, and I was sitting I remember vividly sitting in this humanities class, and it turned out this professor, she's very, very, very left. She's a very leftist leaning person. And I love this woman. She's amazing. She challenged me every single day, but she was not used to being challenged. And I was very young, and I was in very high level classes very quickly. And I was sitting there, only guy in this feminist. It was It was a women's studies humanities class.
Of course you did.
I
was
loved
looking
it.
for a date.
Maybe not wrong. So I'm 15, so in this women's studies humanities class.
It's magical. It was brilliant.
It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So this woman was constantly talking about, these things, and I would just be like, I don't think that's right. And here's what I'm thinking. She's like, what in the world do you know? And she would challenge me in this class, and everyone would sit back and just kind of eat popcorn and watch her go back and forth. And this woman, we kind of formed this really wonderful relationship because I thought she hated me. I thought she hated me for the entire semester. And she came to me and said, you are in the last 10 years, 20 years of my career, you've been the most fun. I hope you pick up another class.
Truly smart people like to be challenged.
She loved it, and she egged me on, and she told me, you would be so much more effective if you just do it this way instead of just being so aggressive. Yeah. Just turn the cup, and that one bit of mentorship changed everything about how I do it. Because I used to come out hard.
I don't know if it's all guys, but I mean, guys that I find myself around, like Chris, I think you're like this. I mean, we like facts and data. And most people, I'll say most people, and don't give me that weird look again, Joe, because most people don't respond to facts and data. They respond with emotion and how they feel and how other people are feeling and how they're going to be perceived for feeling or thinking or saying what they're going to say. So everything is like a protected. You're protecting yourself from...
They get defensive right away.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And so what you just said to me is brilliant. Like, we all should get better at listening to the other side as much as we can. The problem that I'm having so far, but I've received some people from the left that are coming forward to maybe have a podcast, is they haven't wanted to talk. Mm-hmm. They won't come and just sit down and have an open conversation and talk about this thing, why you feel the way you feel about it, and why you think the way you think about it. Maybe the feeling, I just keep the feeling out of it. Let's say why you think why do you make that decision? Why did you make that statement?
I think that's brilliant. I think that these people that come forward, first of all, you and I don't agree on everything. You and I will not agree on everything. And Travis, you and I will not agree on everything. But it is respectful here. There is an out of bounds. If someone becomes disrespectful, I expect one of you guys to pipe up and be like, out of bounds. Let's get back into a respectful conversation or we're done.
I defend my people.
And you should. Yeah. And you should defend anyone that's sitting here, right on or left on the aisle.
What I tell most people is, if you heard that I said something about you, I would say it to your face.
100%.
If it's not something that I would say, I'm not going to say it. I don't care what it is.
No,
right. I always assume someone's in the room with me whenever I say what I say.
And I think that is a very valuable thing. And I applaud any person that comes here and puts themselves on the record. I think it's awesome, or any organization like this.
Right.
But I will tell you, speaking to your emotional comment, when we let emotions dictate how we maneuver through life, it becomes a crutch. That same professor, she was talking about how I would defend myself or I would challenge an assumption, because those are two very separate things. Either she's challenging me and I'm now on the defensive on my back foot, and I always thought that the best defense is a strong offense. So I come out swinging, and I would challenge her in the exact same way. So there's no difference. There's very little listening. And not only that, but my first, based on the way my family operates and the way we contextually relate to one another and how we constantly bang things around, I did not have appreciation for emotional context or emotional feeling. I just didn't care. If it's not a fact, it's not relevant. Emotion is the crutch of the
whole family was stoic?
My whole family is not stoic. They are very emotional in a lot of ways, but they did not let that emotion translated to passion, translated to volume. Okay. So that's how that would go.
Gotcha.
Now, we would rely on facts to support our argument or our challenge or assumptions. What I find a lot of times is people, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, and I love having conversations with people that don't agree with me. I much prefer that than people that do, because it makes me think. But what I learned from this professor is you have to respect the emotion, because the emotion represents how much they care about the thing. Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand the context of their care, you can never understand their perspective. And once I realized that requires listening, that requires me understanding you as a person, Chad, tell me why this is, and that's the first thing I ask. You've heard me ask before, tell me why this is important to you. because I want to know, not because I'm trying to get an angle, because I want to understand your perspective and what makes whatever it is important to you. And the left has abandoned the ability in a lot of ways. And there are some people in the far, far right that do the exact same thing. It's all about living in their church of ideology and
Echo chambers.
The echo chamber or their cult of personality, whatever flavor that is. I don't subscribe to that at all. I want the best version of an idea. So I will say, tell me why this is important to you, and how does this affect you in your life? Tell me why you believe this thing, or why you don't believe this thing, and what facts do you have to support that? And so we go through that, and what sometimes happens is there are no facts at all. It's just how I feel. It's what I've heard. It's how I've translated what I've heard into the way I now feel about a thing. And so when you start peeling the layers back gently, you have the ability to have an honest, open dialogue. Because I become not a monster, I'm curious. I'm very curious about why you believe a thing. Why do you think something bad could happen to you? Because there's only a few things that move the needle in anyone's life. It's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Those are the three things that cause change. That's it. Happiness, you don't change anything if you're happy. Content,
Keep it just the same.
you don't change anything if you're content.
Right.
Perfect situation, don't move the needle at all. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That causes change. If I can understand why are you afraid of something, what has made you uncertain, or why you doubt a thing, then we can start to get to a solution that manages the problem.
I had to have read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People 10 times. It was one of those things. Every couple of years I would just pick it up and read it. Wrote a paper on it in college. I mean, one of the first, I think it's the first one. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. I mean, I think that's the first thing, like going into any conversation, is really, like you just said, is seeking to understand.
It's curiosity.
Curiosity is.
If we become genuinely curious about not only a topic, but the people behind that topic, the people that are pushing that topic, and I can pick any one of those things, it takes down the temperature of the room. It puts people into a place where I'm respecting your position. I'm not calling you a name, and I'm not discounting whatever it is you feel. And I do this. This is how I have conversations when I have social media posts. I genuinely love it when they communicate, when they give me feedback, when they engage with me, because I want to understand their positions. It's very important to me that everybody feels valued, and that if they are willing to put themselves out there and have a conversation, particularly in an open forum like social media where anyone can say anything.
Anonymously now too.
Yeah, anonymously now. I value that. I really, really value that. Even when they're diametrically opposed to whatever it is I'm saying, I value that position. And there are some really intelligent people that are out there doing that. And we engage all the time. And we will never see eye to eye on many things, but they will always know I value them. I value their opinion, I value their passion, and I value them as a person. I do not dehumanize or invalidate.
I think we need that as a culture.
We need to get back to it.
In
We used to have
leadership,
it.
or leadership culture for the city, for
And
the
you do
county.
the exact same thing on yours too.
Yeah.
I try.
So I mean, this I think this ties right into it. Is there's a couple big things that didn't happen in COVID, after COVID, since COVID, and the things now that are going on, and that's acknowledging mistakes. And I'm you know, when I say mistakes, it doesn't mean that you did something intentionally wrong or whatever. Maybe
How about errors?
the system, the system was wrong. The process was wrong, and you got handed a bad process. Like, I think we touched on this last time, but like, rather than getting defensive and like saying, well, such and such did this and such did that, like, okay, this is a problem. Like, I still want to hear what went wrong in COVID. Like, who in the local health department can say something changed somewhere along the line and we didn't change as quickly as we could? Let's admit that. Let's say we now acknowledge that. We don't have to even call it a mistake. But if you can do that, you can talk about what happened, and then you could say, if this happens again, here's what we're going to try to do better. I mean, we could do that every time something happens in the city. If there's a failure at any level.
We do that all the time. It's called after action reports.
Yeah.
In any actual professional service that I've ever been a part of, whether it's been in my consulting groups I've worked in, whether it's been in incident response, whether it's in a police department, fire department, whatever I've ever been a part of, any organization, We have an after action report. Here's what happened. Here's what went wrong. Here's what went right. And here's what we're never going to do in the future. And here's exactly what we're going to do based on lessons learned. This is how we're going to treat it moving forward. So that plan that we talked about with the snow removal, now we know what we're going to do. We learned about this, this, and this. We messed this up. This went okay. So now we're going to go that direction. But until we can have that open, honest dialogue, and COVID's a great example. I think COVID did an enormous harm. Strip away everything that the coronavirus was. Just remove that from the equation. It tribalized people in a way that we may never in this generation recover from. It may take another generation to get past the poison that was a tribalism instituted by these talking heads to divide us, to keep us very, very divided for whatever purpose. And strip that away. Let's look at the true poison that happened. I can't talk to you because you have a belief system, and you can't talk to me because I have a belief system, and I don't even know you exist because we're not the same, and I don't care about any of you all of a sudden. When we look back in World War II, there were people that were helping neighbor, bringing food from their home gardens, they call them victory gardens, to their neighbors so they didn't starve to death. Women were taking nylons that they would wear, and they sent them off to the war effort. They were taking tires off their bicycles so they could make tires for the military. They would sew uniforms for the GIs. This is what they would do. Where is that? Where is the collective coming together? That's what this should have been. When you have an event, rightly or wrong, strip away all the particular pieces of it. Mm-hmm. When you have a global event that is a disaster, where is the coming togetherness here? Where is the humanity that is supposed to be exhibited? All we saw was toxicity and poison and division and evilness. I can't care about my family member because they're this or they believe that.
Man, if your neighbor's getting together, make sure to call it and turn it in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All because some political talking head, some government official, or some political talking head on TV told me I had to.
Right.
Well, we don't.
What the hell
we don't really
happened?
we don't have a uniting mission. I mean, we've had that. So World War II, for all the bad that there was, obviously it was a different time. We didn't have the media.
We should have had a united mission. It was to save people's lives.
Yes.
That should have been the united mission. But they used that and divided us because of the chosen paths on which we decided to go. They forced us down.
You're saying they a lot.
I am saying they a lot. There's a lot of talking.
There's a lot of that out there.
Who are they?
Who are they? Who's they?
Do you remember
where
on
are
CNN? The media had a huge role to play in it. Do you remember on CNN, on MSNBC, on Fox, on all these you'd see the coronavirus death count, and it was just like always prevalent there. I saw a screen capture of that the other day. It rocked me back in my chair a little bit. I'm thinking, I cannot believe that actually happened. I can't believe people were subscribed.
We shared some clips. It was
unbelievable.
They call it Mockingbird, Project Mockingbird.
Yeah, I heard this.
And they had like 100 people on the screen,
at least,
all saying the exact same lines.
And so many of the populace fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And pick whichever side of the aisle you were on. They fell for it, hook, line, and sinker.
I'm kind of a little opposed on this one. I feel maybe 20 to 30% truly believed it. Me and David, whenever we started Unite the Divided, it was to unite people around the mission, unite people around talking about topics, unite people around not worrying about the R or the D, not worrying about the liberal, the progressive. Let's talk about solving problems. We're going to talk about data centers, and we're going to talk about CenterPoint. How can we maybe get this problem solved? That's how you can unite people. You talk about things, but to my point, we broke it up into like 20, 40, 20. You got 20 people on kind of an extreme side over here, 20 people over here, and like 60 in the middle. And like the 60 in the middle kind of, they go with the wind, and there's super strong voices over here, super loud voices over here. These are really loud people. That's my son, I'm sorry. He's doing some weird things in the bathroom. Wow.
Who knows?
Hey, what was that noise? But these people here are much louder, and so they pull people in to make it seem like it's a much more divided thing. And a lot of it is virtual signaling.
Only the sides got the air.
Right.
And But there were people in my neighborhood. I watched this happen. There were people in my neighborhood that they would be walking down the boulevard with 2 and 3 masks on, and I'm like
driving alone with a mask.
Driving alone with their windows up and a mask. I'm like, what is happening right now? These people, they scared the bejesus out of people, and it was evil. That was wrong. That was very, very wrong. I don't care. Whatever, it was wrong. The division that was created. It may take a generation for us to.
Well, love or hate Trump. Out of all the things that happened in his first term, leading up to his first term, I thought his destruction of the mainstream media in and of itself was worth everything else they did. And that's when podcasts came on board, and people started being able to question narratives, and like some of them got canceled, people got debanked, people got all these different things, but they were brave enough to continue speaking their mind. Freedom of speech is the thing that saved us in the long run, where people in Canada even got debanked, and they can't, people in UK are getting thrown in jail because of their Facebook posts. It's crazy.
He pulled the emergency ripcord on this, and I think it was because there were some really interesting things that happened in COVID. Not just the terrible things and the things that happened to our kids in schools and all those things. There were some very interesting things that happened. We remembered what free speech was. All of us, every single one of us, realized we can be censored. When people were calling for people to be canceled for saying one thing or another in our local community, where they're being doxxed in our local community, that's a problem. That's a huge, huge problem. And we saw it happening in real time, and we called it out. And thankfully, there were some very strong voices that came alongside and said, no, I refuse. I refuse to do this. I refuse to operate by the rules, which don't feel good and certainly are restrictive of our freedoms. This is not what the country is made for. This is not misinformation. Tell me why this is important. Tell me why. Asking questions was never a problem until they wanted to channel you down a certain path.
I didn't think that this podcast would end up going this way. It's crazy how things are so they just never go the way I expect they would be. But you going back to your family and how you grew up debating and challenging each other and whatever, and you thought that's just what everybody did.
Everybody.
And honestly, again, I keep coming back to this, but I feel like, and even the teacher that you were diametrically opposed, she was way on one side of the spectrum of politics and you're way on the other. You come together loving each other in the end because you are able to have that conversation and dialogue. And again, I think that's something that has been drained out of our school system. You say they a lot, and I think they is a lot of things. They have done. There's a lot of strategies to divide people
on both sides of the political spectrum.
I'm not defending.
Certainly, the mainstream
would never
media
defend a Republican. I'm not going to defend a Republican today. Not going to do it. So they all manipulate it. They want to keep us, like you said, they keep us divided because they can do things. If we're bickering about ice in Minnesota, even though 20 years ago we wouldn't have known because it would have been a story in a newspaper that went away in 30 seconds. Now it's ammunition. Now there's ads placed on it. Now there's social justice warriors that their whole life is focusing on doing it.
So we figured out how to mononize outrage. Right. That's what it is, but in 30-second bites.
I think more importantly, and even just simpler in thought, if we are truly allowed to unite, it returns us to the Boston Tea Party, which is how this country started, right? Yeah. A bunch of people got together and said, wait a minute, this isn't right, and we're not going to stand for it anymore. Right. And this is what we're going to do, right? They came together. And, with kind of what we're talking about, I think that's what we're doing, each in our own individual aspect, is you can never solve a problem unless you admit there is a problem, right?
They don't want you to know there's a problem.
So, that curiosity mind is what helps solve that. Because if we go in and we lead with those thoughtful questions to understand, it opens up those conversations with those we're different with, right? Mm-hmm. And then, to your point, you find out, well, we're really not that different. No. We believe differently, but we're not different.
No, not at all.
And once we see that, we're so much more powerful. And we we accomplish things. We accomplish big things, because we have to, because we respect each other, because
We care about each other
We
all the time.
value what your needs, you and your family's needs compared to Travis and his family and Joe and his family and myself are completely different, but they're all acceptable, and they're all, we respect each other in that aspect. And
Well, who doesn't want the city of Evansville to be better? Who doesn't want CenterPoint bills to be cheaper?
exactly.
Who doesn't want whatever? I mean, so instead of focusing on,
You say that. Here's the thing. Every single thing you just talked about, if we started solving the problems, the need for grants and money goes away.
I know,
Right.
I know.
So there's a lot of people who don't actually want the problems to go away. They want to keep the money cycle going.
No, they're the experts. So, it's on them to fix
The
it.
way the system's built is it rewards activities, not outcomes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so if the outcome solves the problem, there's no longer need for activity.
Yeah, the entire proposition of the flow of cash precludes a solution. You stop the flow of cash if you solve the problem. We were talking about earlier, if you don't spend this money in this particular grant on these particular projects, then the cash goes away. So we got to spend it on something really quick.
Yeah, we got to
That
find
is an
something.
insane concept to me. Wouldn't it be nice just to return that money back to the taxpayers?
Right.
You want to hear my conspiracy of the night? Well, it's not now. I mean, I've said it many times. You've heard me say it. I don't know. I think there's probably a cure for cancer, but I think it's too expensive to let people not have cancer continuously.
A lot of cancer is very curable. You can change it with your diet.
I have my issue with, and this is something
That
totally
wasn't a conspiracy in this room.
and totally off track, is if people would focus back on a healthy lifestyle with activity, with decent food, a lot of these medical issues would disappear.
Food that doesn't come out of a box.
Have you seen the ingredients of like the same thing from 40 years ago versus today? Like the exact same, like Fruit Loops or something. Like,
Don't get me started.
Well, in UK, the exact same product in
Has like
US
5 ingredients.
Yeah, it's like they've got 13 less ingredients.
right? Yeah.
So
It's a cash flow thing. If you are now in a medical subscription model, which is what we are, you don't want the problems to go away. You have a subscriber to medical services.
And
I need you to
an
keep
early
eating
sick
more.
kid, a young sick kid with type 2 diabetes is a perfect person.
There never used to be type 2 diabetes, which is
So-
insane to me. There was no children with type 2 diabetes.
to your point, Joe, when I found out, speaking of type 2 diabetes, I suddenly found out I was diabetic. I mean, my lifestyle contributed
Sure.
wholeheartedly. I was in ketoacidosis. My A1C was 10.5. I mean, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I was in bad shape.
Goodness.
I had to be treated with insulin for a while. But now, to your point of a healthy, I'm not eating perfect by any means, but healthy lifestyle, I'm doing stuff now with purpose, with what I'm doing on social and researching and everything, right? And my A1C is 5.5 untreated. Untreated. I don't take any medication for diabetes.
If you get a chance, go back. Yeah, congratulations, that's fantastic.
And I feel great. My mind's in a lot better state.
I'm sure.
My
Clarity's there,
family, right?
energy levels better, everything's better.
So to your point, I broke
You broke
the mold in I no longer rely on the subscription to treat what I chose, I guess, to do.
You'd be surprised at how many people have I've said on a podcast with that have cured themselves with just changing their habits and
Right.
eating habits specifically.
Diet is a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The subscription model to medicine is atrocious. It is one of the most shocking and sadly blatant abuses of public trust I have
Do I
ever
need to
seen.
ask?
I mean, it's
I'm going to show you. Oh, you had the bottle for a second. I was going to show you doing the pour, but it's a little
It's just
lower
very
than Frank.
sad to me that people are trapped in that model, and they believe that it's necessary
Right.
for them to be part of that subscription model.
Well, doctor's not going to tell them, like, they're not going to get them hooked up with a dietitian to try to fix them. Like, or
They're getting paid. They're getting paid to hand out medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but doctors are told what I mean, we talk about
gold duct tape.
Yeah, so I mean,
all the time.
doctors are given a prescription. This is how you treat these patients. They can't treat them like individuals anymore and try this with Sally and this with Sarah and this with Billy and this with Bob. It is, here's what they have. You have 3 minutes to go in the room, look at their blood work, give them the thing.
It's cash.
Get on to the next person.
The faster you're through every single patient. There used to be a time when you'd call your doctor up and he'd come to your house.
Right.
And he'd say,
That's called Dr. Roy. He just shows up whether we want him to or not.
He'd be like, hey, Joe, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. Oh, you're eating too much fast food? Well, stop doing it. I had this
You
whole
give them
doctor.
a couple of chickens and...
Yeah, and that'd be the end of it. This doctor that I used to know, he was a really cool guy. It's just amazing individual. I was like, Doc, I've got this shoulder issue. It's really awful. When I do this, it just hurts. He's like, stop doing that.
Don't do that.
Problem solved. And you know what? He's like, go lift some weight and stop doing that. And you know what? It is no longer an issue. And I was told I had to have Rhetoric surgery. Problem solved. Stop doing it and go lift some weight.
Yeah, my mom said when I was a kid, I used to tell her I had headaches, and she's like, "Well, do you want some aspirin?" I'd never like taken medication or anything. I'm like, "No, it only hurts when I do this." And she's like, "Honey, quit doing that."
Yeah, just stop doing it. Yeah. But we used to have common sense.
Yeah.
It's a subscription model now. So you come in, you subscribe to these various services. It's the same with technology. You have Grok Heavy right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have the version underneath it. It's a subscription model. You get much more service as a result of it. Medical science is a subscription model now. It's a pill. Here's a pill. Here's a pill. Here's a pill. You'll feel great with this pill. You're going to lose weight with this pill. You're going to do this. Go get yourself on a reasonable diet. Become physically active. And chances are your life is going to change for the better. You're going to start feeling better. You're going to start being healthier. Get outside. Get fresh air. Have a little sun hit your face. Have natural vitamin D production. You're gonna feel better.
It's amazing how many doctors resist that.
Yeah.
Don't even talk about it.
It takes away from the subscription. If you start having people unplug from the model, I mean, the cash flow starts to diminish. You don't want cash flow to diminish if you're in business, and medicine is a business, period. And that's unfortunate and very tangential to this conversation, but
Yeah, we went off on a wild left.
That's fine. I said it early.
You got me there.
I said it early. Well, you did a perfect lead in. You said something about trust us, and we were right there. I'm like, it's a really good time to talk about data centers. And that was like 45 minutes ago. But so let's pivot a little bit. There are several things that I definitely wanted to talk about. CenterPoint is always a hot topic in town.
Yes.
Data centers are one of those things for me still, and I'm using Grok Heavy to truly understand what they are, why they're needed so bad. I hear a lot of that trust us. There's just, it's like, this stuff's coming. We need it. It's coming. That you're not really, you can't really ask questions. We don't really, why we need this so much. And I'm not saying there's not answers. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying it's very much nobody wants to talk about it.
So from the last conversation, I actually went back and rewatched some of that because it was fascinating. And there were things that I left out. And Travis was hitting on some of them. But the data centers it's a distributed services model. That's how data centers work. In the infrastructure world, and I used to be in the infrastructure world, in the data world, we have to have distributed computing all over in the various area of effort we're operating in. So if it's a business, we have distributed computing inside each one of these campuses, right? And it all comes back to a central core, and you do your thing, and that's how that works. This is no different. All of us are subscribers at some point, whatever version of AI, whatever cloud-based service, whether it's Google, Dropbox, Grok Heavy, ChatGPT, whatever it is, we are subscribing to that. If we do not have the computing power and data center power sitting somewhere, it's going to cost more. So the more distributed it is and closer to you it is, the less it costs us as a consumer. It's the law of supply and demand. The less computing power, the less data storage, the more costly it becomes for us. We want to bring those data centers closer so that the costs come down and the capacity goes up. If we don't have that capacity nearby, and Travis, you can verify all of this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The costs will be exorbitant. Not only that, but the government needs computing power. We are out of computing power.
I don't necessarily agree with the cost is going to be exorbitant. And there's several different reasons for this. And
Cray supercomputers.
well,
you know this model?
Well, this supercomputers are a great example. Like
Data centers are supercomputers.
this phone 20 years ago,
Oh,
it would have taken up, I mean, maybe 30 years ago, would have taken up more than this room. And how much would it
You
have
forget that it's like 26. So 30 years ago it was just 1990.
how much would it have cost to have something like this in your pocket? This thing
$5,000-$6,000.
is priced. This thing is going to be worth $50 in 2 years. Okay, so technology, and especially with robotics and making more and more, technology gets driven down price wise.
Except for material costs. Sometimes materials.
And access to materials, access to raw metals, all those things are very important, which is why we're in Greenland and Venezuela and all that. But so there's a bunch of different, two things can be right at the same time. So I'm not even saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying we're making a speculation on, is the price going to really do this, or is the price going to level off and do this? And I know you had something that you wanted to say.
This is an interesting thing. Hold on just one second, because I want to hear that. But this is an interesting thing. So there's a prioritization of use. As a consumer, we're at that ass end of that chain.
Yeah,
Whether
government gets what they want first.
The government, then industry, and then various strata of us as consumers. You pay a handsome sum for grok heavy. I pay less because I don't want to pay that much. There's a styration, a strata underneath that. You can go back to the Cray supercomputers. They used to buy time. The military bought time on Cray supercomputers at these massive campuses.
I remember when I was at college, I'd have to log time. Well, I'd have to log time. I didn't have to buy it. I was
someone was
paying
buying
for
it
it,
for
but
you.
somebody was buying it. Yeah, but
So
I was logging.
you got a block.
You
I had a
have
block
to
of
do
time.
that because there's not enough computing power. We
didn't have enough bandwidth at the time.
Not even just bandwidth.
Yeah.
You could be literally sitting at the terminal, at a deadhead terminal, and you just couldn't get computing power.
Yeah.
There's not enough. So the government, as their need grows, and it grows exponentially all the time, and industry's need is exploding right now. I mean, they are exploding the need for industry. So if the channel is this big, and they're taking up this much of it, that leaves this much for us, we now need more distributed computing power. Those data centers are essential to meeting that need. You talk about academia, you talk about industry, you talk about small business, you talk about just the end users. We're at the bottom end of that food chain, and that's why these distributed computing centers, these distributed models are so very important. Now, the other thing we talk about is, what will our water look like? It'll be cleaner coming out of that thing than it ever was going in. You could take Ohio River water, pump that thing through there, and by the time it gets through their distillation process, all it is cooling. That's all it's doing, is just cooling. And by the way, before it goes into those cooling towers, it is purified better than anything we're drinking. I promise you that, because it costs too much. And you can verify that too.
I think we'll come back to that. I want you to, if you didn't cover what you had.
I was just going to add earlier that they're converting, or they're wanting to convert the aluminum smelter Century down in Hallsville into a data center. So
That's
that got
the
me
huge thing in Tell City. They were talking about it like crazy because they're so worried about water.
Well, and it got me thinking. Alcoa already shuttered once due to aluminum costs, and we're seeing possible transmission structure to fit that if that ever was a plan to, because I think Joe's right. I think their plans are already in the works nearby, if not in Vanderbilt County proper.
Well, I don't disagree with that. And again, I just don't know why it has to be a secret.
Right.
I don't think
That's just hear me out. Because anytime that you're silenced, anytime you're censored, anytime it's just not an open book. I mean, you'd have to give me some really clear signals as to why we can't know why data centers are so important in this particular location.
I don't think anyone's ever told me that. I don't think that's a secret at all. I mean, the reason they're important here is because we have natural resources.
Somebody's making money off of it.
Well, of course they're making money. But the other thing is, there's three things that go on with any kind of development whatsoever. This happens to be in technology. So there's groups, big private equity groups that are putting these data centers in. They're putting them in geographically advantageous places where there's lots of power or a river, somewhere where you can generate cooling capacity. The cooling capacity is essential because these things get hot, very, very hot. The thing that causes problems with technology is heat. It's always been the way.
That's going to be, that's almost your throttle next.
One of the Bitcoin miners I'm thinking about leasing is in, I think it's in Oregon, just right on a river. So it's all. So they power everything and they cool everything right there.
And it
right
has
there.
to be, and they're going to suck crappy water in. They're going to purify it before it ever hits that data center, and they're going to pump it through and cool things down and drop it back in. The only change you're going to see is the thermal change when it comes out from one side to the other. Now, in fact, it'll probably be much better drinking water than it ever was when it started.
Well, you're going to have the environmentalists. You're going to have all kinds of different.
It's because it's
narratives
fun to talk about because they'll make money off of it.
Well, I mean, we're in a narrative fight right now. Everything is a war for our mind, propaganda on both sides all the time.
Money. It's all about the money game. Right. But as far as the reason it's coming here, it's because it's geographically advantageous. We're in the middle of the country in a distributed computing model. We have a river that runs right through here, and they need that. They need cooling. It's much cheaper to pull it out of the river than it is to pull it out of the water.
I don't question why they would come here necessarily.
Right.
It's not about here.
And the reason that you don't know the ins and outs of it is because there's a bunch of data centers all competing for this space.
Right.
And so there's a bunch of
they're not going to
deals.
say anything until there's an actual contract signed.
There's a bunch of deals all in the works, and they're competing against each other.
Okay, so
that's why there's some close.
So for all the people that are listening, that there's a lot of people. This is a very hot topic on a lot of people that follow us and talk and whatever. And I'm not even suggesting. Let's assume everything you said is right. 100%.
Assume 90% of it's right.
Just whatever. We're close. Nobody's going to be 100%, but I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'll hand it over to you. Then we say, okay, now we're going to have data centers here until some new technology or some new innovation happens, and then all of a sudden you've got a pile of things. It's kind of like the solar panel argument or the wind turbine argument. You create these things. You created them out of oil first and foremost, and you're trying to save oil by
everything's oil.
So it's like that. I don't know. There's a whole conversation there. I really do want to play this clip. Hopefully, we can get the speaker working because, again, assuming yes, we need all these data centers. Assuming yes, for sure. Now we have to look at what other technology or what other things are going on out there that we're not taking into consideration. What does that look like in the long term of our decisions to bring several data centers here or whatever? Just listen to this clip and hopefully we get some audio out of it. Nope, I got nothing. Oh, here it is.
The cost of electricity, like the cost effectiveness of AI in space will be overwhelmingly better than AI on the ground. So long before you exhaust potential energy sources on Earth, long before, meaning like I think even perhaps in the 4 or 5 year time frame, the lowest cost way to do AI compute will be with solar powered AI satellites. So I'd say not more than 5 years from now.
Wow. And just look at the supercomputers we're building together. Let's say each one of the racks is 2 tons. Out of that 2 tons, 1.95 of it is probably for cooling.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Just imagine how tiny that little supercomputer is, right? Each one of these GB300 racks will just be a little tiny thing.
And just electricity generation is already becoming a challenge. So if you start doing any kind of scaling for both electricity generation and cooling, you realize, okay, space is incredibly compelling. So, like, let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, 200 or 300 gigawatts per year of AI compute. Yeah. It's very difficult to do that on Earth. The U.S. average electricity usage, last time I checked, was around 460 gigawatts per year average usage. So something like, say, at 300, if you're doing 300 gigawatts a year, that would be like 2/3 of U.S. electricity production per year. Yeah. There's no way you're building power plants at that level. And then if you take it up to, say, a terawatt per year, impossible. Yeah. Like, you have to do that in space. There just is no way to do a terawatt per year on Earth. And in space, you've got continuous solar. You've got you actually don't need batteries because it's always sunny in space.
That's right, exactly.
And the solar panels actually become cheaper because you don't need glass or framing, and the cooling is just radiative. So that's why I think
that's the dream.
Yes,
that's the dream.
My estimate is that actually that the
obviously, you probably heard Elon just bought SpaceX just bought XAI, and so he obviously has a vision and a plan for putting AI compute into the sky. Okay, so how long will it take him to get there? He's suggesting, and he always does, we can do it next year, and it takes 4 or 5 years or whatever it is. His time is never quite there, but no one can say that his vision is not there. No one's.
You understand the brilliance of taking it outside of a geopolitical responsibility. It's now his. He's creating his own AI country in space.
Well, and he's already testing it. I mean, if you really, my mind went right away to Starlink and Falcon Heavy.
Nobody else has that.
Right.
So China's and all these countries were fighting for land space and for all these resources. He's like, nope.
And again, it comes down to the race to who can control it and do it first. And he's got the space part down already.
He's got the AI part of it down.
I think
the solar panel part of it down.
Well, why do you think he's been building solar panels? All this stuff is to do because ultimately he wants to go to Mars. That's his ultimate goal. This is how you get to Mars, and he has that computing power to do it, which is a wildly fascinating long game strategy. We could go down rabbit holes with this, which is unbelievable. We could go down the rabbit hole of him exporting every single computing asset he has into space where no one can touch it or tax it, which is a fascinating concept.
Brilliant.
I mean, it is a stroke of genius, and people are applauding it, and these countries should be terrified of it because he's creating his own AI government, basically.
Well, when you say countries, you mean the governments of countries?
Yeah, the governments of countries, which I think is amazing. I think this
the ones that want to control everything.
I think this is amazing. I mean, he can look what he does with Starlink in a country that's having trouble. He just drops Starlink.
It's the ultimate anti-tyranny tool.
Right.
I mean, he's every tool that he's put together to me is like, I want to get Starlink because I want to be able to drive wherever I want to drive and talk and say whatever I want to say on his platform.
He literally deploys it like he's Tony Stark. He's like, I don't care what the country's saying. I'm doing it anyway. Instantly. I mean, he shows up like Tony Stark and is like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
But to your question earlier, what do we do with all of this infrastructure that's been built, these data centers that now line up here? And when let's call it 10 years, he gets these things out in space and the AI is running up.
Well, how long will it take us to get it here? I mean, what's realistic when it's actually completed and we're doing it?
A data center
and he's
can
actually
get stood up very quickly. A data center in our area could be stood up very, very quickly. Now, that being said, there's several things that are absolutely critical with these data centers that need to happen before we get cozy. Because I have a lot of speculation around these things. One, the water, I'm not concerned about that. I'm much less concerned about that than some of my environmentally conservative friends.
And I would love to get them here and
have that conversation. Because I would challenge
challenge
every single assumption they have because I know what the requirements of cooling this type of technology is.
So I'm going to trust you on that, but but people will have questions and we'll want to push back.
If you put dirty water through a cooling system, that's the fastest way to jack up that cooling system.
It will be done fast. So they will purify it, they'll distill it, and it'll be cleaner than the water we drink before it runs through there because it has to be. Outside of that,
so you're saying they have to eliminate the impurities?
Yes.
So all the metals, heavy metals, and all the stuff.
Why does? And I think I know the answer, but with your input, I'd rather hear it from you. So why does that difference say at Duke Power Plant the cooling lake is contaminated with selenium? Is that due to the coal ash from?
That's a total. So that's not. So that is a different type of cooling. First of all, that's more like it's like Country Mark when they had the sludge pond. That's not actually cooling in this sense. This does not have. This is a closed system. It's sucking water in, utilizing that, and then pushing it right back out. It will never be anything but pure water coming in. In fact, it'll be purified before it goes into the system.
It's just piping. Have you ever seen a water-cooled computer? Like, have you ever seen just a home machine, water-cooled home machine? So it's just a bunch of piping that goes. It has a reservoir. It goes, to the CPU, let's say, to your processor, and there's water that's on top of that, and it comes through that. You can get a GPU, a water-cooled GPU, and all it is doing is it's using water to keep the cooling down instead of just using air, using fans, which is what most people know. Mm-hmm. Because they're cooling so much and such high temperatures, or things that create temperature so quickly, they can't really have a closed system because you'll be steam in no time. Mm-hmm. So they're constantly adding to it, and that's why it's kind of constantly going around and around and around. Mm-hmm. But it's going through clean piping systems. It's
It has to be.
well, and to be fair, I don't really know how like Duke Energy really how their cooling systems work, but I do know data centers because it's just a much larger version of a water cooled home computer, really. In essence, I mean, there's some differences, but in essence, that's all it really is. So really, you've just got water going through piping, and then you've got a transfer area where that water doesn't actually touch the processor, let's say, because it would jack up all the electronics. But that water goes across usually some kind of thermocouple, which will pull the heat into it, like a heat sink of some sort, to pull the heat into the water, and then the water will just keep running to go. And same thing with the GPU or anything like that.
It is a dilution of the heat. Think of it that way.
Yeah.
So if we can wrap our mind around the fact that the water will not be, it's not, the most it will do is raise the thermal temperature of that water on the output side, which could have some weird effects. I don't even try and explore that too deeply. But as far
If they
as
only run it through a single pass, there won't be a whole lot of heat.
Right.
That would be the best way to do it instead of having a constant and
that's
then
what
just
they're going
dumping.
to do because the
yeah.
heat accumulation would happen so fast otherwise. So let's scrap that out. The other thing, the biggest concern I have is not the water. It is the energy consumption from these things. Because just as necessary as the cooling, well, first of all, the energy required will help power the cooling through there. There'll be huge turbines that push that water in and around and do all the distillation and all the other things, not to mention the powering of the equipment itself. We have to have independent energy sources or a way for us not to be impacted by the energy that's being consumed. And the only real way to do that is by having them have their own energy production. They have to have nat gas turbines in there, or a natural gas power plant, or a little pocket nuclear power plant, something that does not affect us in any way. Otherwise, we already are operating at a 40 to 60% deficit on the MISO grid. We're already buying that power. And when peak power requirements hit, we're at 60 plus.
Well, and they were already during the storm.
Oh yeah.
CenterPoint.
They were warning us.
Warning about rolling brownouts. So
I was so mad about that. I couldn't hardly even. Oh God, my head almost came off my shoulder. But the requirement that we have to get in place is to mitigate the power consumption. That is the biggest concern. Now, to your point, I think you were making, and correct me if I'm wrong, what happens when we build this out and all of a sudden they become obsolete, like many other things? Technology, the infrastructure of that technology exists. Something else will replace that in that building. We have Amazon warehouse. We have warehouses full of Amazon cloud computing.
What's the footprint?
AWS.
What's the footprint? So just give us an estimate of what is it? What is it?
Depends on the size. It depends on how big it is. I mean, that is a very variable and very subjective question. Sometimes it could be a pocket version of the data center, or sometimes it could be massive, like an AWS data center. I mean, those things are huge.
Give me a
whatever the person like whatever the city would agree to, probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
it
would
just
get as
depends
much
on
as
what,
they want.
because there's going to be costs involved.
like something the size of Toyota plant, or
Probably not that.
something the size of a
TJ Maxx,
of a large
maybe.
warehouse.
I'm thinking like the TJ Maxx warehouse, something that size probably.
Okay.
So you drop that in somewhere, and you have all of this power consumption. It's got to be pulled from somewhere. It can't be pulled from our grid. It needs to be self-sustaining. You solve those two problems, fine. Something will go back in there. These data centers will not go away. They will be they may turn into supplemental data centers. And the reason we want data centers
Temporary.
or supplemental. They may just say, the more computing, we'll never need less computing power. It's in the history of data centers.
Can we get enough in
power,
space? Can we get enough in space to?
It's already very, very crowded up there.
It's congested up in there.
Yeah,
You
it's
see that
very
lot?
shocking.
All those Tesla satellites in a row. Have you seen the pictures
Oh,
of
it's
that?
crazy. It's amazing. It's amazing what they do.
That's great.
But I mean, you think about this, there'll never be a need for less computing power. When you have, the reason we want computing power here is because industry is coming and industry needs it. And the farther away that data center and that computing power exists from industry, the more expensive it is for industry to procure. If you move that data center here, industry doesn't have to spend as much. So they want to keep it close. So industry comes where data centers exist. That's just the way it is. That's exactly what happens. The more we become dependent on robotics, the more we become dependent on AI. That AI comes from these data centers. It's not living in the companies, it's living in the data
So
center.
when we're talking about manufacturing, it could be any number of manufacturing.
Research and development. I'd love to see Evansville become a research and development hub. It requires data centers and adjacent data centers close by. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else where the data centers exist.
Well, I mean, that's one of the
Cost
concerns for me in the kind of overlapping AI conversation is as some jobs are replaced. As you said, you know, you and I could have probably a whole full conversation on that and sharing clips and listening to other people. I think Musk was the one that said it. He believes something around 50% of white collar jobs will be basically different within 5 years.
Think about that.
And white collar is.
Trades.
I'm sorry.
Think about what this does for skilled trades.
Yeah.
All these data centers require red iron to be hung. It requires buildings to be constructed. It requires advanced plumbing to be done.
Electricians for sure.
Electricians. And this will be a constant need. The service industry around every one of these data centers will explode because it's constantly being maintained. These are very, very, very sophisticated installations. And not only are they sophisticated, they require constant maintenance. So every service entity around there will explode. The skilled trades around these things will explode. And I would love to see that happen. We are a skilled trades community. We have a small segment of white collar jobs, but the skilled trades is what has made us great historically. We were talking about the Tea Party. We've forgotten that we are much like them. We are people who say, it's an impossible job, let's do it. We've forgotten that. I harken back to that.
So is that then why certain groups are focusing on trying to get like remote workers to move here and offering stipends for that to push we need this computing power, we need these data centers?
EREP is a great example of doing that. They have a program that does that. And it's thousands of dollars in various comps and various incentive plans. They want these remote workers to come here because we need tax base. We need high paying jobs to come here for tax base.
I don't think that I don't think a remote worker is going to need that data center. Like I pretty much work remote almost.
The business they connect to requires a data center.
Yeah, I mean the AI systems that I work on, we pull some of that power from data centers and things. Let's just say that wasn't my job. I was just a remote worker in some other industry or what have you. I don't necessarily need the data center. I think it's more what Joe was kind of talking about. Is it's just trying to get more population here, more tax base, kind of like he was saying.
They want the highest.
And if you get a high earner, usually a remote worker is a higher earner.
Yes, they're sitting there at 100 plus. It's a 6-figure salary a lot of times, and they want those people to come into the community because tax base. Our tax base is shrinking. It is shrinking fast because these big companies are leaving.
We talked about that last time.
It is a problem. It is a huge problem. We talked about, you had a post this week about small business, and it was interesting to see what people had to say about that. But we have to get tax base back. We get tax base by bringing industry back. We bring industry back, we get small businesses and service entities that service these industries. We get small businesses that pop up to service the community. That is how we grow our community back.
So
and get
then,
tax base back.
Why does it feel backwards, at least to me, that we're focusing so heavily on housing? If we don't really have the industry,
I think that's where your remote workers come into play. You need housing for those remote workers.
I feel like,
And
I mean, you need both.
There's a disconnect.
And Evansville is a
need-
shrinking entity.
Right.
We're a shrinking entity, and we're not growing.
I fully understand that you do need housing for people to come here, but we're throwing around, in my opinion, wild numbers of housing. Like we're going to build 6 Toyotas down on Main Street.
The problem that we have is, and you're very spot on with this. The problem that we have is we're letting the government do development, and the government's the worst possible entity to do development. They don't know. You want something done wrong, have the government
And
do
twice
it.
the budget or more.
And twice the budget or more.
Yeah.
They can't get a project done on time, on budget to save their life, and they never will. Because there's no incentive. Stockwell.
I always thought the quote in Contact where why would you build one for the cost when you could buy 2 for twice the cost?
That's exactly.
I always thought that was funny.
but it's painfully accurate. So if you put development back in the hands of the developers and the private organizations that focus on this, it's going to get cheaper, better, more targeted, and more useful. But it takes the government out. So the cash flow machine goes away. All the grants that come along with this, all these ready grants, all of these TIFs, all this taxpayer-funded nonsense goes away. You just bring in developers who are doing purpose-built development based on community need. That takes it into the private sector where the capitalistic markets create and meet the need.
Are we talking about a regulatory state then that's basically stopping all this? Because anybody I talk to, you talk to a lot of small business owners. My whole family's small business owners. I own a company that small business owners reach out to me and talk to me all the time. And one of the things is typically, and especially with rolling out technology, is the regulation and the red tape that you have to go through to get anything done. I mean, I'm going to do a shameless plug here in a minute about a place we're I think going to rent for the podcast. And like for them to change out a sign in front of their building that is already an existing sign, even they have to go through red tape. They have to ask for permission. They have to do all these different things. And I'm like, no. I mean, you're stopping every time a small business tries to do something a little better and improve the business. We're putting a roadblock in front of it every single time. And that's one of the things that Musk talked about at the national level. He's like, we're behind on all these things. We're behind on drones. We're behind on all these things because we get regulated out of these business. Yeah. And China will just say, as bad as a dictatorship, a communist dictator is, he'll say, go do it. And guess what? People go do it. And there is no red tape because he just said, benevolent or...
And I agree with you 100% there. And I think on premise, that's why there is a desire to buy into like Veritas and the Blue Ribbon Committee and saying, look, we need to streamline your process. But at the same time, we have to go, wait, what are the stipulations? Because that gets dangerous, because then you make it too easy, and next thing you know, there's 10 data centers on Main Street, and our CenterPoint bills.
As long as taxpayers aren't funding it, and the big stipulation that Joe says removes a lot of my angst about it is the energy consumption.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
It's drain on us.
We can't create a crisis.
Right.
That's more than we've already got.
What I'm saying. We make this easier. We make this easier, but at the same time, we just open the door for, here, come on in, and next thing you know, CenterPoint bills are $3,000 a month, and not a single soul is able to live.
Well, I mean, I am the type that everything should be decentralized right away, and that would essentially get rid of a monopoly overnight. Like if I could start a community out in the county and say we're going to do a mini micronuclear plant, we're going to start building around this thing. Go build.
But we've in essence we have that now. If we're already buying power through CenterPoint from MISO, then why can't you and I buy power right now and say, hey, like we've created this mess, let's fix it. I want to buy my power from Duke or whoever. If CenterPoint's doing it for me because they're not providing it now, why can't I just cut them out as the middleman? I mean, I understand it's regulated and it's set up like that, but why are we not going, wait a minute, as a state, as legislation?
Everyone is saying, wait a minute.
I think the ratepayers and the citizens are, but there is a series of roadblocks. One of which is we are in a regulated state. Two, we have an energy infrastructure that it operates under that regulation. And there's things like interconnects, there's things like regulated energy status, there's MISO exists for a reason, and there's a quality of production that regulated states are supposed to be able to provide. Now, that doesn't generally come with, hey, it's about to be really cold outside, so expect a brownout, your power can go out easily.
Right.
I mean, that's totally unacceptable.
We're paying the premium and we get the
you're getting the shaft on two sides. But what I would say is that we have power plants that sit around here that we have no access to. It's time to change the model. It is time to address what was. Let's recognize it. It worked for a while. Now it's time to move on to the next thing because it's not serving us anymore.
Well, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
They'll sustain as long as they're allowed to. I promise you that.
Well, but I'm saying it is not sustainable for this community. And further, at this point, we're seeing it's becoming not sustainable for the state of Indiana. I mean, it's up north it's having problems, down south it's having problems. So then as ratepayers, as taxpayers, as citizens, when is our collective representation then going to step in and say, wait a minute, something's got to change?
So there's a bill right now, 1002, Indiana House Bill 1002 is fascinating. There's a lot of things in it. I have been talking with Representative Tim O'Brien about this. We have had many conversations about it. There are some interesting steps involved to protect ratepayers, or some things that we're going to talk about that I have some questions about, but it's a good first step. What we really need to do is, and the governor can't do it, he can't do it on his own. It requires elected leaders in places that we have no control over. None. Ed Soliday and Cook are the two people that have control over this for us, that are keeping the regulated state and the monopolies in power. We have to get either them to move the needle and let us start and I propose this. I propose this to the governor. I propose this to the Secretary of Energy, Sue Jurowski. I propose this to a whole bunch of his cabinet members in Indianapolis. I want a local pilot of deregulation. Let's try it out. Let's pilot deregulated power down here.
Amen. Hallelujah.
And see how it works.
Is this dipping your toe into the thing that you gave us a little nugget?
No,
that you said
not that.
In a couple weeks, so you don't have any.
No, something will be coming with that.
Okay.
That'll be very good. But
okay, don't say 2 weeks again, because I'm gonna.
Yeah, right.
You'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, I will. Hopefully, we'll be talking about it
in 2 weeks.
Hopefully, we'll be talking about it.
It'll be big. It'll be huge.
It's huge. It's the best ever, most beautiful. But hopefully, we will be able to have that discussion, because it's going to be it'll be very impactful for people, and it's the right thing that should be done. But the pilot that I would propose, it doesn't harm anybody. It lets us try it out regionally, locally in Southern Indiana.
As we should be doing it.
It would harm CenterPoint.
Decentralized.
It would 100% stop CenterPoint's monopoly, and it does,
because we haven't dropped an F-bomb. I will just say them. I don't give a ass what they want. I don't care. I don't care. And if so, that bothers me. It concerns me that somebody up north basically is protecting a monopoly, and we just have to sit back and say,
right,
oh, we got to elect different people. Oh, it's Braun's fault. No, it's not.
Right.
So it isn't his fault. He actually has tried. He's done things. I've been in conversations with him directly at a table just like this, and the Secretary of Energy just like this. And we said, let's look at all these options. And he wants to do these things, but we don't operate in a business. If it was a business, he would just do it. We are in a place where we have an entire legislative body, two of them, House and Senate, that are saying no. We are going to stick with what we have. Now, if we want to change things, we either get together, and this is what Fort Wayne has done, this is what other entities have done, this is what we should be doing as citizens, through our leadership of our community, saying, okay, if you don't do this, if you don't move the needle for us, we're going to take you out of office. And we can't vote for you, but we can sure dump a whole bunch of money into your opposition and make sure you're not there in the next election. We can 100% do that. Lobbyists do this all the time. They put a bunch of money towards an effort and they get legislation passed. We can do the exact same thing. We just haven't thought about it. We have been trained.
We've thought about it. We've thought about it. There's a bunch of different groups out there, and there's no Pied Piper is a problem. Like, there's all these people are barking about it, and it's all barking in different directions and swimming in different directions.
The problem is they are not, one, they're not organized. Two, there's not a knowledge base that knows what to do.
Right.
And three, these people that are in power, that are controlling this, the Solidays and the Cooks, they're very influential in our state government, and people don't want to tangle with them. You know who tangles with them, or should? The citizens and the mayors. 100%. They should say, you know what? I don't care.
So many people are on Facebook.
I don't care about that. I don't care about that.
Saying the mayor can't do anything. The mayor can't. And so I even utilized your Fort Wayne, I believe, that fought that. But I have a quick question. It's related, but is Indiana set up regulatorily to only allow one power provider for a certain area, or can there be more than one?
It's prohibitive in our area for there to be more than one.
Right. So and that's legislative, right?
Up north, there's more. Up north, they have more than one.
There's more than one. It's extremely cost prohibitive to do that. And right now, there's transmission lines are CenterPoints.
Right. So I mean, if we did that,
you'd have to deregulate transmission lines.
Well, okay. So if we were the
which requires an interconnect.
Requires what?
An interconnect.
Okay.
Allow access to the grid from whatever. We have a power plant sitting in Rockport right now. We don't touch power at all. We don't get no opportunity to buy that.
Well,
power.
the one up near Mount Carmel, near Princeton, between Princeton and Mount Carmel, I know my wife always complained that they don't get any of that power. All that power heads north, I think, somewhere.
Yep.
But they get all the pollution. But my question really just was whether or not, so if we became the testing ground for a non-regulated, the pilot for the, to allow for another. So in turn, would you also have to try to allow those transmission lines to be used by the alternative, or how would you have
require
to
those transmission lines to be used? There'd be leasing of those transmission lines.
So they'd have to pay CenterPoint to use.
There'd be some transmission lines.
Okay.
We'd pay the same fees. It wouldn't matter to us as consumers. It would be them paying CenterPoint or whomever.
Yeah.
Fees.
Okay.
There'd be interconnect. It's extremely possible. There are many states that do it. It is
when insurance used to be able to to fight over premiums and everything, the premiums were lower.
Yeah.
And then when Obama enacted what he enacted, I guess I could have it on me instead of you. Sorry, but that kind of screwed all of insurance, and the same kind of thing.
Well, he put a monopoly together.
Yeah.
So if the government became a monopoly.
Yeah.
So money becomes centralized into the government coffers. That's one of the biggest problems I have with any type of monopoly. It is the worst. People say, well, this is what capitalism does.
Well, you have
this
to
is what
bust
capitalism
monopolies
does.
in business usually. You don't have to bust this monopoly.
Well, there's antitrust cases that do this. But when I hear people say this, and I have heard people say this a lot, well, this is what capitalism does. We need to get rid of this. Power should be cheap. Well, power should be cheap, and the only way to make power cheap is through the real capitalism model. Capitalism,
Decentralized capitalism.
Capitalism creates competition, creates consumer choice, creates aggressive market positioning, creates lower bills.
Yeah.
That's what capitalism does. This is a monopoly. This is a state-enabled monopoly.
Well, you're stepping on the green energy cronyism too.
Well, green energy is a.
You say that. How much solar have you provided for the last 2 weeks?
Oh, you don't even want to know.
So you were doing 2 light bulbs. Have you had like half of the light bulbs? Zero light
It
bulbs.
didn't even melt the snow off the panels. If that tells you anything. It's still covered up in snow and panels. I'm sure my CenterPoint bill is going to be astronomical.
Yeah.
I will be furious. When I get the bill, you'll know because you'll hear me.
Well, we'll bring it
on Facebook.
Bring it to the next podcast. I look forward to seeing the steam coming out.
Oh, it'll be aggressively angry. But
mine will be bad too.
The issue, to your point, is there's no one, and this is what our city leadership is not doing. They're not coalescing the knowledge base and the resources that are available at a city scale. So all these independent voices in a room,
They have independent agendas.
They have independent agendas, independent thoughts, independent skill sets and knowledge bases. There's no one coming together, bringing everybody together, saying, you know what, I love all this passion. This is the only way this works because there's only this way to skin the cat. Get behind or get out of the way. We're hard charging forward. We're going to make this change. And if we can't get the state to do it, we're going to go and start finding the people within the state and we're going to get them out of office. And the threat of that is the only thing that makes
it seems like something that like an EREP should be doing. That kind of organization of we need to protect ourselves down here.
It should be the cities. It should be the big titans of industry in our communities. It should be so. People ask, well, what would you do differently? What would you do differently? Well, the first thing I do is I go to every single city in a 150-mile radius, every single county 150-mile radius, and I'd have a symposium of these people, and I invite them here and say, this is what we're doing. Who wants on this? Everyone gets represented. This is the money we're spending. This is the outcome we predict. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to influence it. We're not stopping till it's done. And I promise you, these people will come together. We have no agenda up.
We need a vision. I mean, there has to be a vision that's laid out in front of people.
The vision is very simple. We're going to affect change this way, and this way. If this way doesn't work, this is the next channel. If that doesn't work, this is the next channel. And we don't just become so single-focused on the activity, we become single-focused on the result. Yeah. That's a perfect, you are very good at calling out activity-based outcome, not results. You call that out all the time. We like activity. We're so busy. We're so busy. With what? What are you busy with?
Expressways all jacked up.
Here's a picture.
There's absolutely nothing that you're doing. You're making a bunch of noise and you're using all this inflammatory rhetoric, or you're positioning people across the board only for your own advantageous work. There is so much work being done in this energy crisis. I'm part of that work, and there's so much being done. You haven't heard me say anything about it other than a couple of little things. Something good is coming, or we're working on this, or this, or this. Because good work often happens quietly, but it shouldn't if we were being led by city or local leadership. It should. Everyone should know about it, and everyone should be excited about it.
Well, it's the vision part. Unite to Divided for me. I spent the better part of a year with David, and it was a lot of it was during COVID shutdown, and we had a whiteboard that was about twice as big as this, and we just filled it up over and over and over and over and again, and we cut through the noise to get to the heart of what could actually unite people. And a lot of it comes back to the issues that doesn't politically align with me in a lot of areas, and you don't align with me. I want people that don't align with me, and I guarantee we all agree on CenterPoint. I guarantee everyone wants their kids and their family to be healthier. Everyone agrees that they want their kids to want to stay in Evansville, and to do that, we have to build a culture. We have to have a vision for the community. We have to build leaders within the community that aren't hand cherry-picked by certain NGOs or groups that nobody knows where they come from, and it just got dropped out of the air. And like, what are we doing? We're doing the same thing that we were doing before, and no one is telling us what that is. Mm-hmm. So just sit there and let us do what we're doing. It'll be better. We're making it better. Look, here's some pictures. I mean,
What's amazing to me is we're talking about outcomes. I don't remember who asked me, and I don't remember exactly how it came up, but we were talking about the Evansville Climate Collective.
I sent you something.
Yeah, someone said this. One of us said this, and I've heard about her questions about this often.
Because the city of Evansville shared it.
Oh, that's right.
The city government shared the Climate Collective, which I'm like, okay.
There's some. This is an interesting. It is an interesting thing, and I did a little bit of research here, and I pulled this up. They have $492,268 taken directly from the general fund, which is primarily Evansville property.
Evansville General Fund?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
They do not produce infrastructure, enforce any law, or reduce any direct costs for residents. Tell me what they do. Can anyone tell me what they do?
Well, currently,
because I have the answer of what they're supposed to do.
Chris might have an answer. So
I have a little bit of insight to that, because during the December City Council meeting, they were present looking for money transfers for EV charging stations to be put at destinations across the city, because they were getting grant money. It's a common pattern that I'm so good at.
Yeah, you chase grants, for sure.
Uncovering. But yeah, to your point, I mean, okay. And when I asked for tangible numbers of, like, where are you getting this data? How are you, because it was propositioned like it was going to be a revenue stream for the city, right? And
please explain how that would ever happen.
If you make $10 in a year, technically you did generate
$10.
You know what I mean?
The cost, if you spent $500,000 to get it,
right.
Probably not worth it.
But and I said, well, how many EVs are in Evansville? And I got some, and I said, okay, well, that includes hybrids. I'm talking about plug-ins.
Yeah. Can they not plug it into their house?
And see, when you look at raw data,
hotels can have them if people are visiting.
Most people do their charging at home.
They should.
Right? You're not going to drive to the zoo to charge your vehicle.
Not unless you absolutely have to.
But so nobody's going to travel 400 miles to go to the zoo.
We're not, everything in Evansville, it seems like, we're not giving real, because we don't want you to, it almost, at least it seems, we don't want you to be able to check us to see if we're actually doing anything. With, like,
this goes back to your emotion-based.
Right.
Emotion-based decision making. It feels
good because we're doing something, but
because we've been told that EVs is the way of the future.
How long have we been talking about Jacobsville and what's really happened?
Well, the efficiency of
You know what I mean?
batteries during this frozen time is
Insane.
you know, we
At the best of times, it's only 50%.
we talk about climate collaborative because climate change, and we all want to feel good and do our part for the environment.
Speak for
right?
yourself, Chris.
Right.
This
you know,
week.
Not today, buddy.
so-
Not today. Bring that global warming right on back.
right.
So
What
you know,
global warming?
I'll bring it.
go
Frozen tundra out
solar,
there.
go EV, go because it's a feel good, right? But where's the data that backs it up?
Well, you got to have a solar panel charging your solar car for it to make sense. And how are you charging your solar car for the last 2 weeks?
And how do you
You're
make
not.
that solar panel?
You're not.
Right.
You're just not.
I promise you that battery doesn't get charged with solar panel array that lights up 2 light bulbs. I promise you that doesn't happen. Now, I can also tell you that there has been,
We talking about Climate Collective again?
I am.
Okay.
I tried to find measurable impacts or results from these people and from this organization. There are none. The EPA revoked the Climate Collective's $20 million community change grant. They're going to tell you it's because the administration changed. It's because the administration went back to common sense policies and they revoked that, said this made no sense whatsoever. There was a $20 million grant that was clawed back due to, quote, lack of alignment with current new priorities. They had $0, which is why they're trying to reallocate dollars to fill that gap. There's no demonstrable greenhouse gas reductions. Benchmarking reports via January 2025 confirms Evansville lags behind all of our peer cities, South Bend and Lafayette, in actual climate outcomes. If this were a business unit and a business I was operating, I would have closed it down a long time ago. They're doing absolutely nothing except costing about $500,000 right out of the general fund. Imagine if you took that $500,000 and applied it to almost anything else.
Are they receiving money from other places that you know of or you don't know? But
No, they may be getting grants and things like that, but
how many employees? Do you know how many employees they have?
3. I believe there's 3. So all of the efforts, I went through and I pulled the climate action plan that they have. I went through the, there's an air quality and environmental enforcement, which is already being performed by the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, or IDEM.
So it's redundant, not
No,
needed.
it's 100% redundant. The transportation strategy is a duplication of MPO's 2045 plan, which is bike lanes, sidewalks, and transit frequency. CenterPoint's energy transition strategy, 80% renewables by 2030, which
Not going to happen.
never going to happen, but that's in their plan, which they're, again, redundant. Indiana DOT carbon reduction plan, EV infrastructure funding of $100 million transit pool, which probably isn't going to happen either, is also redundant. So what we're seeing is a lot of the ESG rhetoric and
Big city stuff that didn't make it in big
not
cities.
even big
and-
city. It's more that ESG.
It's a narrative.
Yeah, well, it's wealth transfer. It's a narrative that funds wealth transfer. It's when you have these.
That make it sound more. That makes more sense.
When you have companies getting these massive grants and they're producing no results, but they're making a lot of noise and it feels good.
Right.
That's wealth transfer. You saw it in COVID.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical companies had astronomical profits. They posted massive profits. Massive,
We
unprecedented
paid for the
profits.
vaccines, and then we paid for the vaccines.
Yeah.
And now we're paying for the vaccine.
Yeah, and it will be paying for a while. So this, I'm 100% in favor. I am probably one of the biggest appreciators of a clean environment. We need to do this responsibly.
I'm a lifetime conservationist, dude.
100%.
I'm right there with you.
We need to do there's nothing more beautiful than pristine rolling hills across the countryside where there's timber and forest, and our natural wildlife preserves are amazing. Westland Park's beautiful. New Harmony, all these places are amazing. We should cherish these places. But we cannot, and I mean absolutely cannot, put these feel-good, agendaized items in place, start paying for them when we're in the middle of an energy crisis. You asked, how are we charging these vehicles? We're charging them right off the grid, which is pulling tons of energy down, and we're getting brownout notices from CenterPoint. It's insanity.
Well, I mean, if we really...
We're going to drop EV charging stations in when we have a energy deficit of 40 to 60%. This is the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard.
It's such a rabbit hole thing that I'm going to say, and I don't want to go down it because we've already gone down it. But like people saying, I care about the environment, I want to do this, I want to do this because I care about the environment. Like literally, we could have regenerative farming efforts around all of our streams and rivers, rehab our soil, give local farm small farms a place to grow organic food, to supply food for our own city, and to clean up the water as it spills into our larger river bodies. If we really wanted to work on I didn't even shoot this duck. This is Dr. Roy's duck. The duck behind you is Dr. Roy's duck. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars working on wildlife habitat projects on my own money. Sent a lot of money to Ducks Unlimited, and I don't even shoot ducks. but it's because I believe in what they're trying to do. They're trying to preserve waterways.
100%.
They take big projects and they clean things out. Like, that's the effort. That's the type of thing that we need. I'm not even saying that I think
that's what sustainability means. That's what legacy, managing our legacy resources, which I said this a lot when I ran for city council. We have legacy resources all around us. We have legacy assets. Those are our parks. Those are our precious places that should never go away. We can call Bossy Field a legacy asset. We should be preserving that. We should be all of these amazing things we have in our city. We just kind of overlook them and let them run down in favor of putting up EV stations and things that make absolutely no sense. It will actually cost us quite a bit just to maintain, first of all. Second, to pay for it. And it is lunacy. In an energy crisis, we're putting energy sinks into the community.
The irony for me is even, like you said, we are, and I'm not knocking the industry at all, but plastics heavy, right? Injection molding or extrusion are very energy intensive processes. And
we're both very familiar with this.
Right. And
a little bit of,
smelter, in Warwick County, all on CenterPoint, right? And we think that EV charging is going to solve that. So, and I'm for, don't get me wrong, I'm for trying things, but we have to be realistic. Just like back to, talking about CenterPoint and everybody being against solar, I don't think that's the answer, right? But we have to be willing to supplement to some degree as well, right? It's a bigger picture, and you can't just feel good and I'm driving an EV car that I plug in at night. It's green because it doesn't use fossil fuel.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. We got trapped by green energy policy.
Right.
We were trapped.
Well, have you noticed?
All our narrative is built on top of stuff that just doesn't do anything to change global warming.
Have you noticed that Gore's back in the limelight, beating the drum about it? He sounds just like
he sounded back then, which is dumb.
I was amazed when AOC came out and put this Green New Deal out. Nancy Pelosi called it nonsense. She said it was the most nonsensical. This makes absolutely no sense. 3 years later, here comes Biden putting it in place. Yeah. It's amazing. Strike all that out of the way. We have to get back to core capability, core good for our community. If you make a choice to have an EV, great. They turned it into a church. They turned it into an ideology. I am virtuous. I am environmentally conscious because I'm driving an EV. Do you know what that EV actually consists of? It is one of the most toxic vehicles ever created on this planet Earth. Mm-hmm. They are useless after 10 years. Useless. Those battery packs are dead. First of all, 50% of the energy you throw at them is being wasted because the battery can only consume 50% and absorb 50%. Second, every component in that vehicle is precious, and it is wasted the second that battery is done. It is unbelievably wasteful. But Elon Musk has said, and I believe this, he said it when he first started Tesla. People said, why are you getting involved in a car company? You're a tech guy. He said, I'm a battery guy. I want to create the best battery that humankind's ever had. And to do that, I need a vehicle that drains battery power. And it forces me to be good. And he also said, what do you think of all of these green solar panels, these green initiatives? He said, I think they're a wonderful stepping stone. We should explore these things and keep them moderate and in the right lane because they actually take us to the next evolution of technology. Everything is a stepping stone till the next. You said it earlier, science has never settled. We're constantly in the search for the next improvement. People in the Church of Green have forgotten that it's just a stepping stone to the next solution. We've forgotten this. And the role of science is to constantly push the boundary. And so we circle back to the Obama solar panels that failed when Obama had them, that failed when Biden did them.
The Save the Whales program started to save the whales, and they ended up putting the same basic program, put wind turbines out in the ocean. Which, guess what?
kills the whale.
It's not so it is all narrative based, and it is
feel good.
But it's not even feel good. It's made to feel good. When anyone that knows about global policy and what other countries are doing, like, we are well within our footprint compared to China and India and other countries, and there's nothing that we can do to change the climate so much that it's going to affect any change, unless China, India, Russia, and everything are doing exactly the same thing at the same time. Like, all we're doing is draining our own resources. The transfer of wealth that you said is exactly what's happening. And we're not just exchanging wealth within the United States. We're shipping wealth around the country on our backs.
On our dime.
And that's on us. And it's controlled by people that don't care about us. They care about power and control.
So there's an interesting thing I saw today. I was talking with who I consider to be a thought leader. He's a very interesting individual. He thinks about things very differently than I do. We align on a lot of things, but there are some things we don't. We were looking at a graph about real estate. Obviously, I'm involved in real estate. But the larger conversation was in assets versus the valuation of the U.S. dollar. When we decoupled the U.S. dollar from gold, we started printing money.
1973.
Started creating this monster of debt. So we printed more money to service the debt, printed more money to service debt. Debt grows bigger because the cash gets smaller. People with assets gained wealth, and we are gaining wealth at an unprecedented level because we own houses. Our houses are becoming much, 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 much more valuable. As cash gets less valuable, assets become more valuable. That's why cars cost more. That's why houses are costing more. That's why we have this crisis of affordability.
Yeah.
Because the dollar is worth less.
Yeah.
This computer isn't worth more. The dollar's worth less. So we have to have more dollars to buy this computer. People aren't understanding this. If we get back to a place where we start to understand basic economic modeling, not just in our individual homes, but as a community and as community leaders, that changes the entire narrative. We're thinking bigger, and we're doing things like creating opportunities for the community to pay for itself, for the community to be able to start self-funding itself through public-private partnerships, through what would happen if, let's just toss this out. What would happen if we were able to achieve the energy pilot model down here, and we built our own power plant that we owned as a community?
It kind of goes right back to the sovereign wealth thing that I was talking about.
That's exactly what it goes back to. But it decouples us from the need to pull power from CenterPoint. It gives us power back. It gives us opportunity to control our destiny back. Which would be amazing.
Power back.
It is.
Rage Against the Machine in my head there.
It's exactly what it does. But it pulls it back. It puts it back. We are now invested. The most easy, fun example of this is Green Bay Packers. Those people own the team.
Mm-hmm. I was behind somebody today that says, I own a piece of the Packers. Or a piece of the pack. I own a piece of the pack.
You want to talk about the pride of place, the pride of ownership? They go in there and they're like, I'm a concerned shareholder. I own a piece of this.
Right.
I want to know what's going on. And they do. That team's not going anywhere ever.
And Evansville had that opportunity once.
Yeah. And
not with the Packers, but with an NFL team.
We need to have that same level of ownership with Evansville. We need to start owning it back. And we do. We've forgotten that we actually are in control. We are. We've given control.
That's a story we need to tell.
We've voluntarily handed over and delegated the responsibility to other people, but we forgot that we actually control those people. We employ those people.
I think we handed it over. We just don't think about it.
Right.
And you don't have anyone that's really talking about that as, to me, it kind of goes. I don't really like any policy that comes down from the top, but there was a big signal, and probably no one on this podcast is going to be surprised by it, but when Trump went to Davos and decoupled from globalism, he said globalism has failed the West, and globalism has definitely failed the United States of America. Most people, especially people on the left, probably heard the wrong thing. They probably think that means something other than what it does, but it really does mean we're going to focus on America first, and America is going to make the West strong. And if the West is strong, and if America is strong, the rest of the world will behave. And if we are not the central power, if you have a communist dictatorship, it's never going to end well. never ever has it ended well, and it will not end well. It will not end well this time. So, I only wanted to say this because I feel like it's important with the conversations that we're having with the decentralization, the decoupling from the globalist green, because the globalism and green energy is simultaneously happening. And it doesn't mean that, so Germany built a bunch of things. They got rid of their nuclear power. All these countries got rid of the things that they could sustain themselves, and now they're dependent on China to send these things to them. So they've put themselves in a terrible spot. And we
so
kind of did
cheaper.
that.
We definitely did that. It's so much cheaper. They've offshored the responsibility for creating these things, so they didn't have to worry about it.
They had slave labor and
But
paying
now
them nothing. That's pretty
They're
good.
like, please, China, give us back what we need. Can we have it?
Yeah.
And now we saw this in code. We talked about this. Everything is connected. You create when you want to create a brand or you want to create a religion. You first create a movement. You identify a crisis and you explode that crisis. You create a movement. You gain followers. You make those followers feel special. You make them feel like they are the most important people, and anyone else that disagrees with them.
And they're part of an important mission.
And they're part of an important mission. You give them purpose of mission, and anyone in their way is an enemy. That's what our government has done on both sides of this aisle. And there's very few people. That 60% in the middle that we were talking about earlier is totally unrepresented. They are disgusted by this.
I would say 80% is unrepresented.
Yeah.
There's 10% on either side that just don't know what the hell that they're misrepresented.
And the problem that we have is there's no.
And we need that tension, but
There's nothing wrong with tension. I think
we have to have tension.
Good conversation comes from challenge. But what we don't have are people willing in the middle to say, are you kidding me with this? Both of you two are ridiculous. Let's get back to what makes sense, because that's what is actually going to run this country.
Well, and let the debate play out in real time in public. Like, actually have the conversation to where everyone can see it. And if you think that you could get the better of Joe or Chad or Chris or Travis the next time, bring that argument back. And you may win that one a little bit. Then I'm going to go dig in and do a little more research, and then we're going to have that conversation again.
It's not getting the better of any of us in the room. It's let's find a better solution. I don't care about my opinion.
We're all competitors, though.
I'm competitive only in so much as I want to get to the solution.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hang on to something I know. If you start proving me wrong I start realizing it's wrong, I'm going to say, you know what? Chad's got a really good point here. How do we take this point and make it better using my perspective? Maybe he's not seeing some things. That is where the real excitement for me comes.
Yeah.
It's not that I know more than you or you know more than me. It's here's the problem, and this is how I think it should be dealt with. But you have a different perspective, and we bang the crap out of that problem.
Well, that's the difference between a larger corporation and a smaller corporation. Like a small company is like, I got to get what I want, I got to go run through that wall. And I got to do that today, otherwise I don't feed my family. Larger corporation can look back and say, wait a minute, there's probably a better way to get through this wall. Mm-hmm. But you still need the people that are fighting and competing at that level. So you're right, I think I'm right in this one, that like, you have to have the people that are like going towards that thing.
Have passion.
And then you got to look back, like get back into the huddle and say, whew, that sucked. I just got my head bashed in. What are we going to do better the next time?
But that's what leadership does.
Right.
You have these people that are hard charging with the absolute passion for whatever it is we're working on. And you have a leader sitting on top saying, you guys are the best at what you do. The absolute best. Let's get constructive with this. Let's take lessons learned, perspective, and let's apply it and create result. That's what leadership does. They get out of the way and let the brains and the skill in the room start challenging assumptions, start creating solutions, and then they act on the solutions presented. That's what leadership does. Leadership is not egotistical. Leadership sits back and says, I want you guys to help me create the best solution. I'm not the best at whatever it is we happen to be doing. I have ideas, I want to throw them out there, and I want you guys to challenge it, and we're going to come up with the best solution. That's what leadership does. Leadership does not lead with ego. Leadership leads with, how do I make you guys better to get to the better result? That's how it's done. You saw it at Barry. I see it in many different businesses I work in. You've seen it. We've all seen it. And when you have that, it creates alignment of purpose and mission, and everyone feels heard and valued.
Well, leadership to me is creating a person that's better than you at most things and getting the hell out of the way.
That's it.
And
That's exactly it.
and knowing when to step back in, and sometimes
You're the referee.
sometimes that's just in that one little moment, like, and if you've trained that leader properly, they can take your constructive criticism, like you've said, and like Chris talks about it a lot. Is like you have to have people that are open to listening and not just in their tribe. And I want to hit on one more topic before we leave. I think this is a relevant topic because we're getting back into election season, and I'm a little concerned about some of the rhetoric I'm hearing from both parties. Honestly, there's things that I don't agree with that are going on, but I find myself particularly malaligned with a lot of the stuff going on the left right now. And Chris, more aligned to the left, probably agrees with me a little bit on what I'm about to say. But you have people that are looking to be leaders in the city or the state level, and they're ginning up what's going on in Minnesota, acting like they know what they're talking about. They're playing on people's emotions, so they're trying to gin up their party. They're hardcore sides that like, yeah, whatever. I'm not even going to say the thing that it's ICE is another racist. Racism is this and it's all a big distraction to. No, I mean, so murder rates are down in the country. Things are moving in a positive direction, I think, generally. But we have these things that are problems. We have energy problems. We have, AI is going to disrupt things. We have real problems that need to get solved. And we have local people that are, again, throwing gas on flames and saying to the people of Evansville, we need to get on board with what's going on in Minnesota and be anti-ICE and whatever.
So is ICE only in Minnesota right now?
No, but it's
Exactly.
It's all over the country.
So it's that was
It's here.
It's a clear cover-up of corruption is all it is. It's big money, foreign governments, other things that want division, and they know that we're so stupid as a society to focus in on one, like it happened with George Floyd. We're gonna burn things down because one thing happened that nobody knows really what happens, but we're gonna pour gasoline on that. And I don't even claim today to know exactly what happened in that case, except for the whole country got bent in a direction because of something that happened in one street. And why? Like we were not doing all the other things that we should have been doing in that window of time, bringing people together to solve the problems that are in our backyard.
You know what
that doesn't include ICE.
You know what
doesn't
actually
include
hurts
Trump.
the worst is with this, and this I had a post about this. I specifically, I was disappointed. I was really, really disappointed in one of our current city leaders who's running for Congress. I actually know her. I've known her for many years, and she's a good person. So
I think I know who you're talking about, and
it's Marielle.
I've heard that about. I've heard
she's a great person. I've known her for years, and I have a lot of respect for her. And so when she started making these inflammatory statements, it was very upsetting to me because that's not the version of Mary Ellen that I know. It's very disrespectful to law enforcement. She made inflammatory statements before any investigation was complete. She is not a law enforcement officer. She has no idea what we do.
Didn't talk to a single one about the case.
Probably not at all. No. And they would said, you need to be quiet until the investigation is done. I watched, here is the difference between how I look at it and how she's approaching it. In Minnesota, we had a man that lost his life.
Tragic. Terrible.
Conversation stops right there. This man and his family, he lost his life. It was grotesque, no matter what the circumstances around it were. Whether law enforcement was rightfully enforcing law and they had a fear of the public safety in their own, that's horrifying that they would have to live with that. Or that there was some tragic accident happened. There is no racism involved with this whatsoever. There is no ulterior motive. Some tragic thing happened.
That was just in our backyard not too long ago.
And it is just in our backyard. And we have forgotten that these people are human. And this man's family is grieving the loss of a son. We've forgotten that these officers are human beings. And they're dealing with the fact that this man is no longer alive because of actions that they were either forced to take or they did take.
They'll probably have PTSD for the rest of their life.
100% they will, I promise you. There is no chance that this tragedy doesn't have rippling effects across, if not just that local community, all across the nation. It has been blasted on TVs across the nation and the world for weeks now. It is grotesque and horrific that we're monetizing this. And now, selectively, we're deciding as a candidate to energize a base. I'm going to start hammering on that. I found that disappointing in a way that it really affected me. It hurt my feelings. It hurt my respect for this person who I truly respect as an individual.
I wonder if I got her some good donor money, though.
It might have, but here's the problem with that. Politics has somehow changed, whether it was her that wrote it or a campaign person. I don't know who. I don't know. I don't care.
If it's on your page, you wrote it.
It's you. I challenged it. And I said, this is unacceptable. This rhetoric is unacceptable. You have no idea what happened. You saw a video. You have no idea what actually happened at all. You don't get to until the investigations. That's why we have these investigations. And all she did from hundreds of miles away is ramp up the rhetoric here in a place where nothing's happening. And it just excites anger. It creates manufactured outrage that she's now capitalizing on. I don't care. By the way, Kristi Noem did the exact, and the local commander of ICE called this man a domestic terrorist. I don't know whether he was or not. Totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Previous to any investigation.
Yeah.
I was furious that happened.
Yep.
That's
very Patriot Actish.
It's
like I just get to label you, and now
it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It gave air to the worst version of what could possibly be going on because
a presumption.
Chance. Yes,
And unfortunately, it has been created. They want us to pick a side.
they want to tribalize us.
Right or wrong,
Divide.
Win, lose, black, white. You name it, right?
Religious, non-religious, you name a thing that you can pick the opposite side.
And there is just a hard line all the way through it. And it's that you're either with us or against us mentality.
And we're going to tell you what that thing is.
And I think everybody in this room, from getting to know me and seeing my posts, that's what I started solutions over sides. They're in the with me, against me. Sometimes you're going to agree with me. Sometimes you're going to disagree with me. And I, like you said earlier, I want that. I value that because it builds my perspective and see things through other lenses and step back and
to
slow
your credit,
down.
you listen. So that's
But they're, like you said, we want judge, jury, execution within seconds now. And I think it's social media.
It's TikTok.
I think it's, our news. Look at our news sources, if we can even call it that anymore. Locally, I see more stuff that's not in Evansville than I hear stories about Evansville on our news.
Sensationalized. It's sensational.
It's and I've been accused of that on some of my posts, sensationalism, which I find entertaining. But I don't. To what you said, why? I get it. The main point of this is a person, a human, died.
But you know what happens when you do that?
And that's never a good thing.
When you recognize that, that there's tragedy all around and there's families impacted, it unites us.
Right.
It unites us in the sadness that is truly what should be happening. We should be recognizing the sadness. We should be grieving with these families. And we should be, how do we help the community that just went through this?
Right.
That's what should be happening. And you know what we're not doing? Any of that. Because you don't raise money by doing that. You don't raise donor by doing that. You don't energize a base.
I'm going to say something very clearly. This program, this is a shameless plug, but it's not a shameless plug. I want to generate money to do more podcasting and not me behind the mic, not whatever, just the general idea of we're going to come together on topics. We're going to bring people together as a community. We're not going to be sensationalists. I will not support a politician who goes out and throws gasoline on a fire, bringing that shit to Evansville.
That's exactly right.
Like you're bringing shit to our town, and I will not. I'm not on my watch. Not
should be
going to
called out every single time.
And I don't care what party you come from. I don't care. If a Republican does that, there's people that talk Republican stuff, and I'm like,
come on, man.
Just stop. I won't share it. I won't comment on it. I won't like it. And that's my way of filtering to it. That's my way of censoring them and saying, like, if you want my support, let's talk about a topic. Don't blame the Democrat. Don't blame Biden. Why is this happening?
Very, very rarely are you going to hear me call people out by name, because I like to address.
I don't like to do it.
I like to address the problem versus the person, because the person is full of perspective and background and life experiences that I don't have contextual relevance to in a lot of ways. I can't think for you.
They see the world
I don't want to
differently.
think for you, and I don't want to feel for you, and I can't.
Right.
I like addressing problems, and I respect that. I want everyone in this room, and I mean this very sincerely, every single person in this room, that when I run for whatever it is I'm going to run for, when that happens, I want you to hold me accountable to not being that person. And if you see me doing that, call me out on it. And
I'm texting about you all the time whenever you're not around, dude.
But I do really want that, because sometimes you get caught up in things, and maybe that's what happened with Mary Ellen. And I want to believe she got caught up in this because she's a very kind and very emotionally connected person.
True.
And maybe that
I agree
happened.
with that.
Maybe that I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt on that, because I know her and I value her as a person.
But your
leaders can't run on
here's
emotions.
the caveat of that. Here's the caveat of that, and everybody's entitled to that. And every one of us in this room has made a mistake, and will
100%.
continue to do so
not me.
going forward.
Sorry.
But the difference, we throw around leadership a lot, right, in this room. The difference is, hey, I'm gonna walk that back. You know what? I spoke too soon. I didn't know all the details. I reacted emotionally. This was tragic. You know, you're entitled to however you feel about it, because I don't know. I have not lived your experience. You haven't lived mine, whatever, right? But to what seems like, from our perspective, to throw gas on a fire, to fan a flame necessarily.
For benefit, personal benefit.
Yeah, possibly benefit, what have you. Let's second guess that. I get it. I understand the strategy. I don't agree with it, right? And moral compass to me, again, I make mistakes every day.
100%.
And I think somebody commented back, but I had misspoke on one of my posts to someone that had commented. And I went back and I read it and I went, whoa. And I, right off the bat, and they commented back to me like, wow, you just owned that. You don't know how much that meant to me, that you corrected it, right?
It's huge, man.
And it goes back to what we've been talking about.
That's lack of ego.
That transparency.
It's important.
And I think for me is, early on I had a lot of people, and I still do, reaching out to me, what's your motive? What are you out, what's in it for you? What are you trying to, I'm not. I want Evansville to get better. I want us to be that city that as a kid I was proud of when I went to big places. I'm from Evansville, Indiana. Where's that at? And I talked it up, I don't feel like we have that anymore.
We don't have that. We are our city of apathy. But why can't we be a city? Why can't we be that city on the hill that people look to as the example? We are in the middle of a wonderful series of communities. We're the largest. We should be the shining example, the city on the hill, for how to do it right.
Right.
And we're not.
Right.
Imagine city leadership. Imagine a community that had access to city leadership. You ask a question, you get an answer. You want to know what's going on a Stockwell project? It's right here on a dashboard. Here's exactly where it is. Oh, so-and-so, help me understand this. It's right here. Let me walk you through it. Being that transparent solves a lot of problems, first of all. Being that accountable solves a lot of problems. There's no sense of hidden agendas. There's no sense of, well, I'm not getting traction. There's no sense of I'm not being heard. All that goes away. It's simple communication and accountability. That's it. Imagine that being the case. Lots of problems get solved. I love the fact that we have so many nonprofits here trying to solve problems. We have a lot of nonprofits here because problems aren't being solved. So everyone tries to skin the cat a different way. Everyone tries to crack this nut a different way. If we came together and created a solution and then focused on that, there's plenty of money. We can find other problems to work. It doesn't mean people are going to be out of jobs. It means We solved this, let's go to the next. We solved this, let's go to the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. Let's divert and channel all of that passion and energy for bettering the community into things that actually better the community and not just create, to your point, activity.
Well, it's not, what I don't want, and I get this pushback from my buddy Dave all the time, because he says, I live in Evansville for a reason, and it's because I don't want growth for growth's sake. Bigger is not better, always. Like, you don't need to be a growing, bustling...
True.
You know, the city's expanding and becoming the next Indianapolis or Chicago. Let me finish my point. You can come right back to it.
Shut your mouth.
That's good.
Growth for growth's sake is fine if you know that you need revenue and you know that you're trying to fill you need surplus to do the things that you want to do as a community. You need to do as a community. If you have a vision and leadership, and you're creating a community and a pride and a whatever, that doesn't come just because you're building new buildings and you're creating new things. It comes because people are taking ownership of the community. People have a voice in the community. People feel like they're heard in the community. People want to get involved helping their person plow the snow in the street because they know it needs to get done. And by God, Joe got out and did that for people, and Chris got out and did that for people, and that's what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. Like, so for me, this is always going to be a challenge. Like, I don't always need more buildings. I don't need more jobs. I don't. That comes. I think that stuff comes if you have the right vision and you have the right leadership.
If you're doing it right, they're naturally going to come.
People want to come here because it's a good place to be, because they value the people, they value the leadership. We have a good leadership funnel that's taking people, bringing them to a place where they can do things and putting them in a place where they can continue doing what we're doing.
My challenge to that, or I should say clarification of that, is when I say shining city on the hill.
No, I love shining city on the hill.
I don't mean just growing. I mean, and that doesn't mean building. That means growing opportunity.
No, I didn't take that. I didn't take that part of it. Yeah.
When we have opportunity growth, it creates pride of place. It creates community pride. When we have the reason for our kids to stay here, we're pretty excited about that. Yeah. We are a community that's contracting in population. That's a problem. Our tax base is shrinking. We're subsidizing mediocrity because we're not getting a new tax base in. Our businesses are leaving because we don't have any resources. It's very costly to be here.
What we're doing is we're pushing people out of the city, and then we're trying to expand the city to pull those people back in. I'm like, no, you don't understand
how this works. This is a basic misconception of how economics and growth work.
Yeah.
This is, if you have opportunity, you have growth. And then you have to manage that growth judiciously and carefully so you don't create sprawl, so you don't create this random group of misaligned things. You have a plan that tells you how you're going to grow in a business, in a community, in your personal life. I don't just want to randomly grow for no reason. I want to grow with purpose. I want to grow because there's a reason behind this. It creates more opportunity. Mm-hmm. If we become that place that is known for creating opportunity, we become an R&D center. We become a mecca for innovation again. That's a wonderful, wonderful place. Some of the most beautiful places in the world, in our country, in our world, are small communities. Right. I describe this place as the biggest small town that I've ever been in, and I want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Right. But like you said, you have to have the opportunity first. You think, again, I'm pattern based. Humans migrated for resource, right, or opportunity.
That's right.
The gold rush, right? Mm-hmm. That took everybody out west because there was a life-changing possibility of opportunity.
And the weather's not bad either.
Right. And, you're on the ocean. But, we have to provide that. We can't this isn't Field of Dreams and we just build a bunch of houses and people are going to show up.
Right.
We're building apartments. We're not even building houses. We're not even doing that.
Yeah. Right. But, provide the opportunity. And to Joe's point, what's the opportunity we're providing right now? Extremely high, unaffordable, unsustainable utility rates?
Well, I'm going to try to pull Travis into this conversation a little bit because you've been very quiet.
You have been shockingly quiet.
I'm pushing buttons over here.
So
I've been listening. I've
So,
been absorbing.
no. So you're a remote worker. You're a front edge person in the AI development realm. Like everything that we're talking about, you come from a smaller town, which you love, and I lived in that. Ironically, lived in that same small town.
Yeah.
That sounded like a John Cougar song, did. I lived in that same town for a minute, and I understand that closeness and that everybody kind of knows everybody. Everybody kind of looks out for each other. There is something to be said about that, which brings me back to that.
Yes.
The city doesn't have to be big for it to be what we need right now.
That's exactly right.
You have to have communities that work with each other and that want to be around each other. I mean, whatever the community center in each little town, sometimes that always turned out to be a bar in some places. Like
A lot of times,
people, you just go and you have a beer and you shoot the shit and you're doing all these things.
A lot of times.
Am I saying that's the best solution? No, we don't need a bar in every corner or in every neighborhood. But like your question, like what do you see? What do you think you need as things are changing? Your career's changing. Like, what do you want out of the city of Evansville? What's going to keep you here?
Well, that's funny you ask that because this is a conversation that my wife and I and family have a lot is, my family's really trying to pull us back. What would it take what would it take to get you to come back here?
Yeah.
And what it normally boils down to is my daughter, is what it normally boils down to. And it's whether or not we want to take her from her school, which she's in a great private school that is really pushing her and we love it. Whether we want to take her from her friends that she's made, that's anywhere, or some of the opportunities that she has. For instance, she really loves tumbling. Well, there's multiple places she can go to do that here, whereas there's one.
One, yeah.
There's probably one.
No selection, no choice.
Right. So there's pros and cons to both situations, I think. And to just like anybody else, I think to keep me here or for me to really, really want to stay here, to push back on my family, like, no, I think we're going to stay in Evansville. Most of it boils down to an affordability. I mean, that's just what everybody says, and I hate to ride the same horse that everybody else is riding, but I mean, it's just, my wife and I are constantly, we make pretty good money, really, honestly, for the average home in America. I think my wife and I make pretty good money, but we're still stretched.
And you get paid in bourbon at least once a week too. So
I know, and it was
and it went empty.
It was delightful. No, I don't need any more. You're fine. But I am that remote worker where I could technically, I guess, uproot and go wherever I wanted to go.
For sure.
And so, for me, what all that's keeping me here right now is my daughter and her, the things that will assist her in her life, or in what she wants and what she's grown up with, or just friends or acquaintances, people that I know. I'd hate to leave you. I'd hate to leave this. I'd hate to leave the ability to sit here and help, hopefully, to move the needle and change things along the way. But I mean, really, I think coming all the way back to answer your question, I think it's just being able to afford to live comfortably as long as you don't make stupid decisions. I mean, if I run up a $25,000 credit card bill, I mean, that's on me, But if I'm just trying to keep my house at 68 degrees and it's costing me $500 a month to do that, there's a little bit of an issue there. And I think that's more what...
I think some people would pray for $500 to do that.
Well, no, I know. And it's not a big house.
Here's one thing I'd say. Everything that you said I know is true, and we've had side conversations about it. So I kind of knew you knew the answer. What I will say is like what I would miss in a town like that, and I think you're a lot like me in this way, is you want to be in rooms with people that are trying to move the needle and change things.
That's true. I'd have to be the one to move the needle.
I mean, you would have to be like the mayor, the whole county council, and I mean, it's like everything. And there's something to be said about that conservative town that doesn't move very much, because when crazy shit happens around the world, you're like, no, we're good. That stuff's not. We're insulated, and so that's what a small community or a smaller town does. I know you would miss the challenge. Like you want to be kind of on the front edge of doing things. You're too busy, and you can do that anywhere as a remote worker, but you can't engage with people quite the same. I don't think. Like you can't. How many people in your town are going to come together and have a conversation like this? I don't know, but I think you just spotlighted it perfectly. Affordability is huge.
That is the number one
you gotta have
opportunity
community.
that this community should be providing is affordability. And we've long stood on top of that principle, but we have forgotten it and we've let it go by the wayside and we have not held our leadership accountable.
But ironically,
We hammer CenterPoint, but our water company's raising rates as we speak.
Right.
but ironically, we still, even though we've lost that affordability, that's our like number one marketing tool.
It is.
What we use to try to attract. Oh, well, Evansville's affordable. All while Evansville is increasingly unaffordable, both not just to residents, workforce, but businesses themselves, because the reality is they're paying the rates too.
I do. You did hit one thing real quick, or it might have been Joe just a second ago, but just community. That is something that is kind of pulling me more to my small town, is to know people and to know where I live now. One neighbor I could absolutely go over and be like, ask for any help, or they would come and ask for our help. The other people we talk to once every 5 months, and it's a wave and a high. Maybe it's not even a high. What am I saying? It might be a wave,
a nod.
It's more of a hey, thanks for not tearing down my fence whenever you pulled your lawnmower out. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just there's no community,
no
really,
connection,
at least where I'm at. And I think a lot of Evansville has lost a lot of that community.
Well, so
I think it's just everyone looking out for themselves.
So that'll be my challenge to any incoming leadership, with everything changing in the world, which it's been doing with social media, and we're disconnecting, our kids are disconnecting. Like, we have to have a concerted effort to pull people. Humans are a very specific thing. We require connection. We require other humans to interact. Otherwise, we become isolated assholes. I mean, we really, you'll get on these things and you can look at your screen all day, and AI is going to learn what you want to look at. It's going to give you more. It's going to give you the dopamine hit after the dopamine hit after the dopamine hit. So, I mean, to me, a leader in Evansville, in any town, even it'll show up in that small town at some point, is going to have to find a way to get people back connected to the community. And that's one of the things I feel like a city, we have people that are heads of districts and wards and whatever, but what real meaningful relationships does each of those people have with the mayor? What meaningful relationships do they have that's tying these things together, that's connecting the dots, that's listening to what's going to bring him here, what's going to force me to move to Warwick County, because no offense, I can do what I'm doing everywhere, just like you, and we have some property out there. Why would I want to stay here? So anyway, go ahead.
I want to say something just real quick, because it's funny that you just said that. I went back to that small town for the Christmas parade. Our mayor was walking down the Christmas parade, shaking hands. He came up and said hi to me, because we were in the same class, the graduating class in high school. But that
makes you old, dude.
Shut your mouth. He came up, shook my hand, said, "How you doing, Travis?" And we talked for just a split moment. But I mean, I know he's approachable. I know that I could go talk to him if I needed to. And I think that's another thing that Evansville is really kind of lacking is. I don't necessarily want to say accessibility, but almost kind of like you said, Joe, where
very much.
Well, yes, accessibility.
It's exactly,
but where just your leader cares about you. You know what I mean? Like,
they care about their agenda now. It's,
no. But in that small town, though, he cares about it. If there were anybody that I think should be leading that town, it is him. He cares more about that town than anything. He runs the he's got a memorabilia shop of the history of Tell City. He has an entire warehouse of Tell City chair furniture.
Cheers to him.
So he cares about his community. He cares about the people in his community, and that's not a sideways comment at anybody around here. But I'm saying I feel like that's a more accurate representation of at least that smaller town than the current
thing
town
that they've done
in.
with that. The thing they're maintaining in that small town is they're focused on the community rather than the business of running the government. There's so much I can say.
Gather yourself.
Yeah, take a breath. You don't have any more bourbon. You want a little more bourbon?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm trying so hard not to be harsh.
Right.
We've forgotten that it's the people that matter here. We've forgotten to get embedded in the community, like walking down, and not just walking down a parade route and shaking hands, but the larger the government, the larger the entity, the more isolated the leaders become.
Larger the disconnect.
They're trying to disconnect you from the populace because they don't want you connected to the populace. The government is a machine that churns cash and activity. That cash activity is threatened when you start saying, hey, Chad, what's going on? Can I get involved in making your life better? That starts solution-based thinking. Solution-based thinking stops activity and creates results. That's not something that government likes. Government likes to be funded.
Well, not just government, not just government, but the NGOs and the other things that
NGOs
again require
a problem.
A need.
There's a problem. So you manufacture a need, then you create an entity to solve that need, and it's not solving, it's servicing the need.
It's like creating an illness so you can create the cure, or not the cure.
You're propping it up.
You're servicing. It's a subscription. I'm
putting a spotlight on
whatever it is. And if
you want to cure that, no, we need more of it. It's good.
Yeah, we need to keep this going. We need to do more research. Whatever it is, we're not solving anything. We're just servicing. We're subscribing to the need.
It's a leadership vacuum. We hit it last time we were here. It's a leadership vacuum. That doesn't mean we haven't had good leaders. That's not any knock on anyone that's in government now in our city or county. That means there's no cohesion. Leadership is about, you guys said it with your I don't know how much we did on tape and how much we did before. Was talking about what Berry Plastics was and how everything was cohesive because of the relationships and the wanting to solve problems, being inspired to solve problems. And yeah, there was money there. So the difference is like there were some capitalistic things. There was things driving leadership towards, we have this vision and this is what we're trying to accomplish. But at some point, money doesn't really matter. Like it matters to a point.
But it takes you right back to we're not solutions focused. We are subscription focused.
Yeah.
We want to subscribe to the problem. It's the exact that we have in our leadership, and you're going through and you're doing some really good analysis. I have gone through this analysis before, and it's frustrating. You're going to quickly become frustrated. The leadership we have in place, and a lot of times it's not just local, it's state, it's national. These people come out of nonprofits. They are not solving problems, not even trained to think to solve problems. They are trained to service the subscription of whatever issue it is. That is what's going on in the city government. Our city government right now is led by people who are trained in nonprofits. Nonprofits hold their hand out, give me money, and they get it.
To push back a little bit on that, and I've got 2 points.
To him or me?
On him right now. So I agree with you, but I think it's a system problem because
It is.
more like the availability, because I can't remember if it was one of my posts or what, was talking about kind of complaining about how meeting structures, like sometimes, area plan or whatever, maybe at 9 a.m. And somebody said, well, that's because these people, it's working hours. And I don't feel sorry for you. You're doing a service. I got to go down there at 9 a.m. and I work a real regular job, not knocking anybody.
I have to take off work if I want to go.
And I have to take off work sometimes, to do so. So in a sense, it slightly, I guess, unfair to say that because they're more readily available to fill those roles. So I think that's how they end up there, because someone that works, a 9 to 5 job necessarily can't, they don't try to run for an office maybe because they're like, well, I can't make it. I can't miss work. I can't.
Don't have time.
Right. Whereas somebody like that may. But I think I got to thinking about Travis and that small, community and the disconnect. I mean, when you get to a city like our size, or even let's look at it at a county level, it's those individual cultures right off that cause that disconnect. I mean, you think about it, the families that have kids, so your kid's school, that's one culture, right, that separates you from this, right? Evansville, it's unique, but it's, I think, a hindrance all at the same time, is that geographic side of Evansville, the west side versus the east side.
It's not our fault they can't cross Pigeon Creek, dude.
Yeah, but you see what I mean? Like
they're allergic to east of.
It's there, but it got me thinking while Travis was talking. Like I've lived in the 2nd Ward for a long time, 20 plus years. And I can't ever remember, and of course I wasn't paying attention for the longest time, but I don't ever remember having like a ward cookout or meet your representative or a ward.
Not unless it's election time.
Ward town, right? Unless it's election time, right? And then two, my district representation of county council. Never talked to him once. I have had, in all my years, I've had 2 candidates come to my house. One was not successful, was running for a council seat, was defeated, and one is Noah Robinson. Actually came to my house and talked.
Noah knocked on so many doors. He ran with an effective
Kudos to him. That was very well done.
You know, how can I don't feel represented, right? If I can't connect. So where I was going with that is I recently had some concerns about something, county council, and I had reached out. No response. I followed up. Light response. Now, I've since learned why that happened.
They saw your name. No, I'm kidding.
During all this, though, there was a post about a district rep signing up for re-election, right? And I commented, well, I never heard a word from him, so I'm not going to support their re-election. And
what have they done that's earned their re-election?
And I never even, this is what bothered me more about it. After that, never heard from that person. Now, I know not always do you get notifications on social media. You know, you don't, it doesn't always click. But if I were in that party, this particular party, or that particular party chair, I would be like, hey, Joe, you need to reach out to this constituent.
100%.
Something's, you know what I mean? But further, if I am that representative, I'm going to be paying attention. I don't represent anybody officially right now, and I check my socials all the time. Now, do I answer everyone? No, because some are just statements. They're not really.
Well, at some point, it gets too much.
Right.
Like it just.
And I'm a one-man band doing this in my spare time.
Well, so what you'll have to do, and I'm not giving you any advice that you have to follow, but you have to kind of smash things together. Like there's people that are talking. Like I get people sending me things about this.
There's noise,
and there's no, I could get stuck in a research loop, and I would never leave. I would never leave our basement. Literally, I could stay in the basement and just research and get like all these different things. But you got to kind of pull people together and like inspire people to lead on their own. Like one of the things with this to me is, again, I don't want to be the leader of United Divided. I want to be someone that says people are uniting, and this makes me really freaking happy, and I want to be a part of it. Like I say things because someone's not saying it. I'm not saying it because I feel like I need to be heard. I like, is this problem being solved? Yes or no? If it is, and I can look at you 3 months from now, like, yeah, you're working on it. That's good. We can audit. Yeah, good. Keep going. Keep going. Like that's what we need. If we don't have that, then that all the red flags start coming up, and then things get worse, and this happens and that happens, and like again, it is lack of leadership, but it's also lack of training. It's it's a vacuum of putting people that are asking those questions, putting a mirror up to them and saying, "That's a great question. What research have you done on that? Can you tell me what you have experienced in that? Like you're good at that. You're better than that than I am. Like you already know that, but like that gets them involved. And then if you bring that conversation to this table, because you've heard it kind of several times, like most of the times I try to bring together now, it's like people that are saying things collectively, it funnels to, we need to focus on 2 or 3 or 4 really big things and bring that to the surface.
But my issue is, and to address your, and it's kind of a common sense thing where some people just don't have time. The machine itself doesn't want solutions to be created, so it finds resources that will do exactly what it needs. It's feeding itself. If you have someone that's a nonprofit background, We have people that are full
He's filtering
time.
himself again.
We have full-time people working in nonprofits that are supposed to be servicing a community, and yet they still somehow manage to find themselves in the government. It's because they're non-for-profit people that operate how this current version of the government wants them to operate. They're not people that are going to challenge the status quo and say, why are we doing it this way? They're going to be people that say, I understand the model of holding my hand out and getting money. And I also operate a non-profit, and I am working in the city, and the city's now going to give my non-profit money. That is a very circular argument. It is a very incestuous relationship. It is a very concerning thing for me. And it is also a very, it's a very stale model. It's time to change how we do business as a government entity. It is time to put people in place that will say, yeah, this isn't working anymore. We need to change what we're doing. We can no longer assume we're going to get money handed to us. How do we make money back? How do we start giving money back to the taxpayers?
We got to quit trying to rely on grants and TIF.
That's all we
fix
do.
Our solutions.
Or Republicans or Democrats.
Right.
We've got
We need to be people in rooms solving problems.
But they don't want to solve problems. So non-profits don't want to solve the problem. They want to service the problem. It's a subscription model, just like we talked about earlier. Yeah. It's constantly subscribing. So they get cash in, they service the problem continues. They get cash in, they service the problem continues. Or by order of
people
magnitude.
profit from problems.
That's exactly right. When you
not just governments.
In business, when you solve the problem, you go to the next business challenge. We have plenty of challenges to keep us busy in the government here. I promise you this. We have plenty of challenges. How do we become the shining city on the hill? By solving problems, which creates opportunity, which creates growth. That's the formula for success. That is not what we're doing today. We are actually importing problems in. Talking about Minnesota when we have no business talking about it whatsoever. We have plenty to keep us busy right here. We are importing problems in. We have an affordable housing crisis. No, we don't. We actually have a contracting populace here. We have an affordability crisis that we need to address. We're just masking things and changing narratives to support what we want to have happen. And that's not productive. That is not in any way productive. We're creating an issue so that the government can come alongside and try and solve it by spending tons and tons of our money on it. That doesn't solve anything. That just perpetuates new problems and creates new problems.
Well, so this is a perfect, you teed me up for a perfect shameless plug, the second one of this podcast, which I never do. So the subscription model works because you have channels and media that sell their advertising to drug companies and prescription models. Like people see news, hear conversations because companies can put their advertising dollars behind whatever that message and narrative is. The reason why people need to create their own podcast, sit down and have a channel, sit down and talk about things that don't require a company giving them money. It doesn't require whatever. Like you need a Joe saying, I believe in what you're doing enough where I'm going to give you X amount of dollars a month and I want you to keep doing that. Like luckily, it's taken me 2 years to get to the point where I have a few people now that are doing that. And it's hard work. And now I feel compelled every day to wake up and make sure that I'm delivering that thing that I know originated this. I'm not ever going to change my questions and my pivot because this person now owns this company and they want me to ask this question or they want me to avoid this topic. No, we need to address the things head on that need to be addressed. We need to talk about the things that need to be talked about. And so the only shameless plug is like, I would love to have a Christopher Newman podcast. I'd love to have a Joe. I know, Joe, you do your own thing on your own thing to promote the things that you're doing. But like the topics and the organization structure of the city needs people that are not just worried about their business or their professional career. We need people that are serious about solving problems and not because you're a Democrat or because you're a Republican. No offense to my Republican or Democrat friends, because I think we're in that duopoly system that's just where you are, and you have to pick this side. You have to agree with this 100%, or no, screw you, dude. I'm a Democrat, so I can't agree with you on this topic. I got to go give my money to this. I mean, that's all just nonsense. It's nonsense.
The identity politics and the church of politics has become so nonsensical and discombobulated. people cannot function anymore. They're so frustrated they don't even go to the polls anymore.
Right.
We said it before the cameras came on. JFK was a staunch Democrat and would be a right-wing wingnut in a Republican now.
He bucked
so
the system
he
completely.
didn't change. Everything else changed. Does it mean he was wrong about the things that he believed in?
No. Well, JFK was an amazing individual. He did a lot of amazing things that really challenged the status quo. The Democratic Party of that time was not a good party. I mean, people would be up in arms if they did a tiniest bit of research on what the Democratic Party believed in the era of JFK.
Right before him, for sure.
For sure, right before him. I mean, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But
No, please don't. The history books are not right.
No, they're not. But it's a very ugly period of time for the Democratic Party. That being said, I think that we need leadership that challenges and is then accountable. So everything, it is absolutely no secret that I'll be running for public service in a leadership position in the near future.
I'm completely surprised by that.
I know, I'm sure stunned. Stunned.
Travis, are you surprised by that?
Did you know?
What? But I want everyone here. The reason I come here is not just because there's good ideas, not just because I like everybody here, and I like.
You can afford better bourbon, so it's not the bourbon.
I want to get my.
Travis, this is pretty good bourbon for Travis. He drinks Canadian whiskey, so this is kind of an upgrade.
That's rough.
I'm kidding. I'm just messing with you.
I want to
I like my crown, okay?
I want to be on the record. I want you guys to have me on the record. I want you to hold me accountable. That's the reason I come here.
You never have to say that again because that's going to happen whether you ask for it or not.
Well, that's why I come here. That's why I think other people don't.
Yeah. Well, we're like family to you in that regard.
Yeah.
Like we're not just going to let you say something.
No. My family, trust me, you guys will be mild compared to how my family will operate. I promise
No,
you.
dude.
They will be.
I know your sister
Yes.
quite well, and I know that she'll give it way better than you give it to her.
Oh, gosh.
Probably on most things.
Oh yes, but I have grown up with that level of accountability, and I actually welcome it because accountability
beautiful.
makes you better.
It's beautiful.
It makes you better, and you don't get locked in a silo of ideology. You don't get locked in a vacuum chamber of I'm always right. You are forced to take other people's opinions into account. You're forced to divorce yourself of ego because you're quite often proven wrong in the most embarrassing ways in an environment like
Political science is called political science for a reason.
that. No,
It's because
it like that.
because it never is static.
ever evolving.
It's ever evolving, and you always have to question it. And that's like we lost we don't have political science anymore. We have political we have ideological funnels that are pushing people into certain directions.
And the reason we have something on the far right is because we have something on the far left. It is the law of cause and effect. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
You create the thing that you're trying to prevent by over focusing on the thing. Yeah.
I think AOC is a direct result of Trump.
Yep.
These two are the same person. They're just different sides.
I said Trump was a symptom the first time he was elected.
Right. People were tired, but the thing
He said our government's corrupt. Our media is lying. And everybody's like, yeah, even Dave Chappelle does the best joke on the planet. Whenever he was talking about Hillary and him on the debate stage, and Hillary's like, he just does this because he's rich and he takes advantage of the system. He's like, you're right.
And so
Because
do you.
and so do your donors, and that's why you will not change anything. And she's like, uh-oh. It's like
because he says the things that shouldn't be said. They never once said out loud.
Right.
throw it out there.
So if you do those things, if you're honest, Donald Trump is nothing if he's not honest. He'll say exactly what it is, and then people will try and portray it as some outlandish thing, and then in some very short amount of time, you find out, oh yeah, that's exactly what it was.
But he does also say some outlandish.
Oh,
we can all agree on that.
He says that. But this is how he creates.
It's a distraction. I mean, he
He
distracts.
starts a fight before he even walks in the room, so that they're off balance.
No, people don't know the fight that he's trying to start before he walks in the room.
It's
And
crazy.
this is going on over here, and he's actually doing something over here. That's
It's like strategically.
yes.
I've tried to research it and study some of this, like the just outlandish lies, and it's like, why would you do this? And like I end up more frustrated. You know what I mean? I'm like, I just don't get it. This makes no sense. Why you're doing this? And you're right though. He will just walk in the room, and it's like, Boom.
Here's a
See, you gotta go.
There we go.
That was the greatest hand explosion you've ever seen.
You know,
it was great.
And
I don't do a good Trump. You do a good
But
Trump.
while you're over there researching and frustrated, he's over there accomplishing whatever he wants.
Right.
To do.
Right.
That's how
right.
it is. It's
And that's the
classic.
part I don't like, actually. I mean,
That's actually very frustrating because that's the thing. I don't like personal insults. I do not like
Right.
how he
The belittling.
look
I
at
don't
the
like
people that he belittled. Here's the thing. Here's what everyone will tell you about Trump. And this is the only positive thing I'll say about Trump, really. Little Marco is now probably
One of the most powerful people in the world.
The most close to being anointed to the thing than anybody. Like, he's above J.D. Vance to me. He's like, he has a lot of stuff going on in his head, and he's trying to solve problems. I'm not saying I like him. I'm not saying I'm going to agree with everything he says, but Trump does it for theater, and he's an actor and he's a comedian, all at the same time. Like, and people just react, and he says outlandish, crazy
he
things.
controls everything.
He already
through
knew
this.
that he already
controls
knew that Marco was smart enough to do the things he needed to do.
He was testing
And
the entire time.
That's
how he
all.
does it,
It's
though.
all it is. It's like, how are you going to respond to this? Because they're going to kick you in the nuts, just like they kicked me in the nuts. Are you going to respond to it? And Marco he can diffuse any argument right now. Like, someone comes to him and he's just like,
good at it. But here's the deal: he is constantly interviewing people. That's how he operates. If you're in a conversation with this man, and I've been with people like him, he's very, very similar to lots of people I've known in the energy space. You are constantly being interviewed. You're constantly being challenged. You're constantly being tested. And look at what he did. He had these people. These people said some of the most horrific things about him. It still plagues him, even though they've been completely debunked. These things still sit out there. But he brought them into the administration because they're amazing. If they could go toe-to-toe with him, I want you on my team. It doesn't care what version of, you could be a Democrat. He has Democrat. Bobby Kennedy, I want you on the team, man. You're awesome. Bring you in. These people were diametrically opposed to him. Mm-hmm. Marco Rubio, I think, probably despised him at one point, and then said, "You know what? You were awesome. I want you on the team. You were."
Well, you saw Mark. If you paid attention to the theater of the pre-election stuff, where they do the debates, you could see exactly when Trump got under his skin. Mm-hmm. Like, you saw Rubio turn red. Mm-hmm. You saw him get flustered. What you said is exactly right.
He had to find how to get under the skin. But
because Marco's going to go to foreign countries, and he's going to be negotiating with people that are way above what he's trying to do, and he's got to react to what they're saying and diffuse it. Like, it's the training, it's the leadership that he didn't even know that he needed, which is genius. It's actually genius.
That is part of his genius. Trump is a performer. Look at what he did. If you want to know how he manages, watch that stupid Apprentice show. That's exactly what he's doing. He's testing, and then he approves you. That's how he does it. The other thing that nobody talks about, and they should, and they really, really should, because they'll be studying this in the years to come, is he did these things. He said these things. He makes these outrageous statements because at the end of the day, he knows we like to be entertained.
Yeah,
and not only
the emotional, it's the emotional side.
But wait, he knows.
What'd you say?
That would have been a great
entertained.
That would have been a great moment for that clip right there.
I should have had that shit queued up. I didn't know that was coming.
But listen, he needed votes. How do you get people engaged? You entertain them.
Yeah,
and then you get votes. He did the impossible, bringing all of these very disparate people together.
The impossible twice.
And he entertained them, he engaged them, he challenged some thinking, and then he got the votes.
Well, he got free media because the media got the rating.
He controlled the entire, he worked them over.
Oh, yeah.
Marketing, good or bad, you're talking about.
It's the same thing.
You know, I mean,
Madonna said that forever.
So
if it's something controversial,
right?
If the church is mad at me or whatever, like it's
right.
Eyes on me, which is a benefit.
You ask why he says outlandish things. It's because he's not controlling the narrative. The second that he's out of control of the narrative and he's not leading it, something outlandish.
He'll reset it.
Yeah, because he needs it to be in his control. If they're talking about whatever he wants them to talk about.
If it's not in his control, it's in their control.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. Yeah.
The they that we're talking about, to me, I do believe this is a very It's not us versus them. There is a different game going on. That
He went to Davos and told the most powerful people on the planet to go pound sand and left.
Let me tell you something about you that you don't know.
And he insulted
And we're
them.
not giving you any more money.
He insulted them.
You
want
to attack us? NATO's not going to fund that. So good luck.
Yeah, he literally told them, and he insulted every single person, told them their countries were crap, which in a lot of ways, their freedom of speech. He said, France, England, we model ourselves off of you, and you suck now.
And how many people in those countries actually have said, we agree?
Yeah.
He's right, and guess what? Better yet, he's not changing.
What do you think is going to happen to Iran because of what he did in Davos? All of Iran's proxies are pulling away.
Yeah.
China and Russia are pulled back, way, way back, because they don't know what Trump will do.
Right.
They have no clue what's going to happen. And right now, I promise you, one of these Fridays, one of these weekends, we're going to find out we took care of Iran. It's coming. It will happen.
He already knew how that was going to end.
He did because he orchestrated the entire thing. He did because he's orchestrated. This is a long game he's played. Now, I'm not talking about him as, I don't idolize him as some wonderful leader. I idolize him
because he's very divisive. Uniting the divide is not what he's doing.
But what he does it he unites us in a weird way. Look at all the different geopolitical people he brought together in the second election. He had Hispanics voting for him. He had blacks voting for him. He had people unprecedented turnout because he engaged them at their level and entertained them. That's what he did.
If I had a dollar bill or something, what every election comes back down to is how much money is my family going to have in their pocket at the end of the day? Was it going to be better? If we went this way? Was it going to be better at the end? We can talk about all the nuances of politics and shit, but it always comes back to, am I better off now than I would have been if we would have gone the other direction?
He ultimately made everyone feel like, and he's done a really good job of this, that he's fighting for them.
I would challenge any local Democrat, any local Democrat, even including Noah, who I respect, and he might give a great answer.
I like Noah.
If Kamala would have won, or if a Democrat would have won in the last election, how would we have been better? What path, besides not having ice in Minnesota and having friction there, what non-Trump related comment can you make that's going to say the Titanic is now moving a little bit away from the iceberg versus directly at the iceberg?
You know what they did to really cause, where the Democratic Party lost? It wasn't at the ballot box. It was when they installed Kamala and they removed democracy from their own process. It undermined everything that they did. Joe Biden.
They installed Clinton over Bernie.
Sure.
Well before
100%.
that. They have a good pattern of that.
It's a play. But what they did was they corrupted their own system that they were banging the drum on. And they put the worst possible candidate in place. This woman can't put 3 sentences together coherently. And they tried to shit. And everyone saw them pull her out of the limelight as much as possible until it got to the place where even the national media said, we have no access to her. And then they put her out and she sunk the ship.
Well, here's
it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
The reality of the party is they have had kind of the extreme left pushing their policy for a long time. The fact that they're entertaining the Bernie, and Bernie is pulling the party to the left, and now you have a Mamdani, which is even further left than Bernie, means that's the direction you've been pulling people. And so you're narrowing your audience. The further you get out to the edge of anything, you're narrowing your audience all the time. You don't have a centrist, you don't have whatever. So what we would have had if Bernie would have won and beaten Clinton is probably another Jimmy Carter. Meaning you're going to install a bunch of stupid things that things are just going to start falling apart overnight. What would have Bernie have done that would have really brought the country to a better spot?
It would have been a horrible.
And I don't have anything against Bernie. I think he's a brilliant politician. I mean, I think he united people that were listening to him.
He understands how to emotionally connect and take the people who feel disadvantaged. Yeah. He's a different version of Trump.
Trump learned from him, I think, and pulled a lot.
That's what he does, though. Yeah. He learns from where people win and where people lose. He's got that. To our point early on, he has the ability, through gut instinct alone, to make really, really quick pivots and changes. And he does it very effectively. He can be in the middle of a conversation, be set on a path, realize something, see some trends, and his gut reaction says, go over here, tags over here, and gets wild success.
And he can slide back to he can maneuver things.
Somehow he makes everyone in the room believe it was his idea the whole time. Yeah. I was going this way, and I went over here intentionally, and now it's me. It was the greatest thing ever.
100%.
But that's just how he operates. if we get to the place where we actually have people who care about the people, that's what Trump's done. He actually convinced everybody that he cared about them, and I think that
Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But the brand he put together says, "I care about you." The unions voted for Donald Trump over a Democrat. That is a shocking statement. Shocking statement. It's not that it's not that it should be. They voted for what they saw was going to be a better position. No one was advantaged in the Biden administration. No one, but the people at the very top were advantaged in the Biden administration.
My last call, but
I'll push back on you a little bit there. Was it they voted what they felt was a better position, or I guess I'm saying the same thing, or it was just better than what their other choice was?
I think it's a mix of the two. I think that's a semantics game, because the way the country was tacking was so very, very negative.
Right.
Inflation was scorching. Our dollar was plummeting. Our position in the world was abysmal. I mean, we were no longer leading the world. Period. We were
moving in the wrong direction.
Well, no,
very, very visually.
Not only were we moving in the wrong direction, we were being led by someone who was literally being led by the hand off of the stage.
Yeah.
It was the party, the party that put him in power was trying to prop him up and keep him in power. It became very apparent, particularly last year, that we've been lied to. The country had been lied to for a very long time, and that decisions were being made that had absolutely nothing to do with the person in the chair. Nothing. And so when those lies started to accumulate and they started gaining traction, it became so evident that not even the news media, not even the brand could change it. That's when Trump seized on it, capitalized on it. The thing that almost threw him was if they had actually done a snap primary and gotten someone in like a Bashir, he would have been done.
You know what those lies used to be called?
Lies.
Conspiracy theories.
That's right. But think about what would have happened if we would have had a snap primary in the Democratic Party, and it would have been like a Shapiro, a Bashir, some moderate Democrats that came in and said, we're really middle of the road. Andy Bashir is widely regarded, even in the Republican Party in Kentucky. I'm not talking about crazy Gavin Newsom. I'm talking about common sense, middle of the road people who just want the best of what American people. He would have had more trouble. He would have had more trouble with that.
You and I don't. I've met him. I've seen him, and he turns me the wrong way.
I'm not a Bashir fan.
I don't trust him.
No, I'm not a Bashir fan. But what I'm saying is, Trump would have had a lot bigger problem.
I agree with him. Well, because you're fighting over middle ground. You're fighting over independently.
Was a populist. He became a populist. 100%. So is Bashir.
100%.
They're the same issue. They're going to fight over the same issues. Which is going to be the better version of these issues? Trump didn't have to worry about that with Kamala. She was so far on the left, and Biden was he didn't know where he was, but his party was so far on the left. Trump, it was like fish in a barrel. I mean, it was so easy for him to call these things out. But if you get someone in there that's a populist just like him, he took all of the Democrats' issues away and made them his. They got left with only the crazy stuff, the stuff that nobody really, the only 10% way on the far left care about. And that's how he won. He took every good issue away.
This conversation is probably going on 4 hours, isn't it?
We're at 3 1/4.
Yeah. So one last thing I kind of want to just, United Divided is not about right versus left.
No, that's what I love about it.
So I don't want to say I'm cautioning my friends from the left and people that are trying to be elected on the left. What I want is solutions-based people and not people that are inciting fear, anxiety, division. We said a couple things on here right in this last 30 minutes that were quasi pro-Trump. It doesn't mean we are pro-Trump in everything that he says and does. We need less anti-Trump conversations and more what are we trying to solve actually, and being held accountable to the things that we're saying. We need that from both parties. Locally, we need transparency. We need accountability. We need people willing that if I'm going to vote for you, you can make sure that I'm not even going to say if you don't come on my podcast because it's not about me. You need to go on podcasts with people that are going to challenge what you're saying and have long-form conversations to be held accountable over time to the things that you're saying. If you're not willing to do that, no offense, you're not going to earn my vote. And I want to vote for Democrats. I have voted for a lot of Democrats in my life. I will probably vote for a local Democrat that said on this podcast because I think he's probably the best person for the job right now. If someone comes along that challenges the things that we disagree in and he wins me over, good for him. That's on that guy, and that's going to challenge the guy that's going to make everybody better.
Everybody gets better.
Yeah.
And so
I think
quit with the political divide shit. Quit with we need to be Minnesota and Evansville. Yeah, Indiana should feel what these people are.
this rhetoric is nonsense. It's inflammatory.
It's trash.
Yes.
It's trash.
The reason-
and nobody in Evansville wants that, except for
these
fringe weird people.
the base. They're trying to energize their base.
And not even
it's
the base.
disgusting. It's disgusting.
Nobody wants that crap.
The reason that I think, or at least the reason I was talking about, is it's interesting to analyze how we are in the place that we are. What contributing factors brought us to this place? What skill set was used? What natural gifts and skill set and tactics and strategies were used on both sides that brought us to this outcome? I do not in any way idolize cult of personality. People are human. Everyone's fraught with their own personal inadequacies. I really, really, really wish Trump were more presidential and restrained. I think that would be...
I'm like 50-50 day to day with that.
Look at how
he would have gotten killed.
Look at how Ronald Reagan operated.
That was a different time, though. Man.
Different time, but it didn't have to be. Look at how JFK
But that's not
operated.
Trump's fault.
No, I get it. I totally get it. He's a product of our current situation. How do we get back? What I want to do is get back to civility.
100%.
That's what I'm trying to push back on. I talk about Trump. I talk about how we got here and go into deep dive analysis of this because I want to understand where we are, how we got here, and how to backtrack.
Well, let me push back on you right there because I agree with you where you want to go, but you're a boxer.
Yeah.
So someone jabs you low, you got to guard low, and you got to respond to that thing. And Trump was on his own on so many things. He had no political backing.
You know what I do?
He had no media backing. Well, you said it already. You said he was a media marketing genius.
He's a mogul.
And so, as much as I want to be critical of him and say that, man, that was so dumb, and I'm a marketing guy, Jesus, could we have pivoted a little bit and moved away from that? I don't know that he could have, because he's the theys that he's going after, the theys that he's involved in, trying to unroot from the system that we keep skirting around. That's a problem. He's fighting all of that at a level that we don't have any idea how to understand. Like you got the top of the FBI and the CIA with two figureheads, but you got this thing that's been going on since 1940 something that ended up killing JFK. Has any of that been unleashed? No. Why? Because it's still there. And so he's fighting all of that.
Widely, the conspiracy theories around J. Edgar Hoover could last us for days of talking. It's a long-standing, almost a joke at this point, how corrupt that was. But my issue is he's a product of where we are. I want us to get rid of. I want us to get rid, and he's a genius. There's no denying this man is a genius. No denying it. I don't care if you love him or hate him. You cannot deny this guy has moxie. He has raw gut intelligence, and
FU money.
FU money that he
that's always
leverages.
helpful.
I remember the time when they were talking about this bond he had to put up, and they said, "Well, how are you going to back this bond?" He looked right at the camera and said, "Cash." It's $1 billion bond. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty big flex. But what I want to see is let's get back to a level of civility and intelligent, respectful discourse. I saw some of that in the J.D. Vance Waltz debate. That gave me hope. I liked watching them debate.
Marco brings that to every conversation. So what I'm saying, these people that he has around him are moving the needle back to, like, he can throw the hand grenade in, like you said, and then these people are like, course correct. That's genius. You still need people that are
the disruptor.
You still need that, and then you surround yourself with people that can fix it, knowing that your mission is deeper than what most people can fathom or be a part of.
This is the classic good cop, bad cop. And when you said I'm a boxer and, when someone throws a low punch, you have to guard. No, I just move out of the way. I move out of the way and I smack him in the face. Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And that's different than what Trump does. Trump will literally walk into that punch and punch him as hard as and fast and throw 10 punches there one. I'm not that guy. I think there's a different way to do it. Reagan wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
He was. He literally stood up and said, "Tear down this wall."
Yeah.
He came on TV and said, "Do that." He did the most
And he was
respectful,
funny.
straightforward, funny, and engaging way
And he was
possible.
funny.
He was giving a speech after an assassination attempt, and a balloon popped, and he said, "You missed me,"
Yes.
without missing a beat. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
What
But
was,
I-
what was the thing that he said about I'm not going to hold your youth and enthusiasm against
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
That was on,
Because he's old.
on a debate stage.
See,
Killed it.
But this is what was amazing. We used to have that. It was, and we saw
But it
that
was
with-
more friendly banner.
It was.
And now
Respectfully.
and now I think the biggest problem is
I'm trying to wrap up, Travis. I
we're
promise.
we're just continually turning up the rhetoric, right? Either way, whatever way.
Okay, all right. I'm going to challenge both of you. Keep going.
And I think we're getting to a point where, you know, it's forcing bad things to happen.
How do you
and
change that in a
tragedies.
15-second culture? How do you change what you're saying and be a different president in a window of time where your future voters watch 15-second clips of things?
Right.
Like, so I agree with you morally and on the principle side of things. From a outcome and making it happen marketing side of things, like
Right.
other things have to move before the Titanic is moving that fast.
But I agree with you. But I think I'm kind of tying with what Joe says. Now we're not just changing the short game. Now we're effectively changed the long game. What I mean by that is by this, both sides have turned up the heat to a point so much that nobody knows. Well, not nobody. A lot of people don't know what they believe anymore because you've turned it up to the point of you're pushing people out here, you're pushing people out here. And this is one of those debates I've had with myself about like Trump in particular, right? He's, in my eyes, almost effectively destroying his Republican Party, right? You're effectively, like historically, midterms, you lose seats, historically, right? And you've become so divisive, whether, reasoning, playing into whatever, that you're going to lose some of that. And you have to know that. I know that party and there are political strategists much smarter than I that see that. And then further, now you're affecting the long game for the possible runner after you.
But iron sharpens iron too.
True.
And so, like, you have to throw people out quickly, more quickly now
Right.
than we've had in the past. There has to be a more immediate pulse response to the things that are going on, in my opinion.
Right.
We're not, like, the 4-year cycle of things in politics to me is way outdated.
But do you think...
Like, no?
Do you think the populace, though, with that 15-second culture, either side can react to that and pardon my French, but see through the bullshit? And
If your vision is right.
You know what I mean?
If you have the uniting vision at the end and you tell people clearly over time, this is what's going on around me. And this is what it takes us 4 hours to get the thing that takes 4 hours to get to.
The only way that works is by having trust in the person delivering that message.
Right.
And trust in the vision. So you asked, how do you change it in 15-second increments? One of the most amazing things that I see on social media, and when I'm feeling less than enthusiastic about the state of our society, which happens periodically. Sometimes I just become disenfranchised and unhappy with the state of our society. I will go and somehow my algorithm knows I'm in that state, and it starts feeding me videos.
Dopamine hits.
It is. Well, it's trying to make me feel better, right? So it
does things. It gets you somewhere, then it gives you something to buy, and then it does something again.
It tries.
No, that's what it does every time.
Yeah, it's trying to do that.
Yeah.
My algorithm's so confused; it doesn't know what I do. But
that's what it does to most people.
It will feed me videos of the military, or it'll feed me videos of
something makes you feel
first
proud.
responders doing something
Makes you feel
absolutely
proud.
amazing.
Makes you feel
Yes,
proud.
it does.
Makes you feel proud.
And it gives me hope back in the spirit of humanity again. And it's 15 to 30 seconds of, okay, we're not all bad. Terminator's not going to show up and wipe us all out. Thank God, we've got some hope. Yeah. But what that does is it's telling me how to affect this problem. If we start, instead of, they do a really good job of dividing us at 15 seconds at a time. Here's a 15 second of someone dying on the sidewalk.
They're not dividing us. They're doing to you what you want to be done to you in many ways. They're doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing to the people on the other side. That other people that are funding division will pay a little bit more money to get in front of them.
Yes, they will.
Like it's the same thing as a Google ad. Like if you want to be the top ranking thing in Google ads, you're going to pay a little bit more money to get your name to show up first. It's the same thing to change someone's what I'm going to click on and how I'm going to respond to it. It's the much more nuanced, intelligent video instead of the hire this real estate agent or hire this. Now it's like nudging you in a way that your brain wants to go naturally.
See, what happens if we stop feeding them negative in the political parties?
How do you do that?
By saying
the political parties aren't in charge of it.
But they are. The candidates, I've been a candidate, and what they say is, here's some talking points that you can use. Here's some things that we would like you to say.
Maybe locally, but not nationally. You're not controlling what other countries are paying for Trump to hear. ICE stuff is not coming from our country.
When I am sitting in front of a group of people as a candidate, or when I watch Trump at rallies in front of these, he can say whatever comes into his Trump mind to say. I can say whatever comes into my mind to say. What I choose to deliver to these people sets the tone for what I'm going to do. When Mary Allen chose to deliver that message in a 15-second bite, effectively, do I take to read it, she chose to deliver a certain kind of message. Imagine if we said, we need to focus on the tragedy of this and wrap our hearts and minds in love around the people affected by this tragedy. Please join me in a moment of recognizing how horrific this is, and let's pray for this community.
I'm not sure we're disagreeing on anything. What I'll say is
that's how you change the 15-second narrative.
But Trump is saying the same thing that Democrats has been saying for 20 years in regards to immigration, illegal immigration, and
but
borders.
They turn it against him now.
Well, so that's ultimately my point. It doesn't matter what he says and what you believe. It matters what they are trying to influence people to think. So he's like a damn rabbit that's jumping down every hole, trying to get enough people to follow behind him to actually get the rudder steered in the direction. I think he's a distraction game, and I'm not saying that's good for humanity. I'm not saying it's good for America. It's not. But that's our attention spans, and the people that fund. Like if you want to change it, letting foreign countries. Quit letting foreign countries.
Art of war, fight them where they're not.
Yeah, you're allowing foreign countries to put ads in front of our kids.
Well,
right? That's what we actually physically do with allowing large corporations that aren't based here to do that.
And this is just me, and maybe it's just
Travis, you're never going to bed. I'm sorry.
Maybe it's just because I'm weird and
we still have to
boring.
go to the other side of town.
I know,
but. I broke my algorithm. Like I get the most random.
Oh, it's crazy. The nonsense I get is insane.
You know what I mean?
What is
it's
that?
all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think I did that by my conscious choice, right? Of kind of what I've been doing and
trying to stay as neutral as you possibly
can. You're right. I'm not aligning. I'm data and looking at things. So I think that's how we change it. Mm-hmm. We have to be open to, this makes me feel this way. Stop.
Yeah.
Critical thinking skills. That. Don't be controlled.
Get away from that. Don't let them, manipulate you, into this dopamine hit, this dopamine hit.
And train your 18 to 20-year-old kid to not do that either.
Right. And be conscious because when I look at my data for my post and stuff, I am currently I think sitting at a 70% search rate. Or people are seeing my stuff.
That's good.
They're looking
super high number.
They're looking me up.
Yeah.
And so that tells
you're dialed
me
into the Facebook algorithm
I'm doing what I need to be doing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but that's that conscious effort of I want to understand. I want to see it from multiple lenses and develop an educated,
Balanced.
you know what I mean, balanced opinion of it. And I think if we as society, and that's where I kind of reverse your outlook in a way initially.
It's not an outlook, it's this observation.
Right, is starting local, right? Because I can make an impact here. I mean, I can make an impact nationally too, eventually, right?
Yeah.
But immediately I can make an impact here.
Grassroots, for sure. Yeah.
So then I can build that way. And that's my outlook on it, at least.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think everything has to start local at this point, and that's the reason, again, why I'm sitting in a room with three guys that are trying to do different things locally rather than, you know. But for me, it just took me seeing the bigger picture, understanding how it's happening at the higher level, because it is trickling down to us. I mean, your direct feedback to the local, you know, the Mary. Can you say her first name, or does it have to be the first two names? I don't know how to address her quite yet, but so it's like, you know, we have to find a way to bring our community together, and you need serious people that aren't trying to insulate and isolate people just to get a few votes locally and to gain energy. I mean, that's why I said I'm not going to support things that happen like that. And if she agrees to come on a podcast, I'm going to call her out on that and have her explain it to me why that's relevant to making our area in Indiana a better place to live for the people in Indiana, which is what she's putting her hat in the ring to do. She's not putting her hat in the ring to affect the policy of the United States of America or in Minnesota.
She would, as a congressman, she would have that ability to do so. And so I get why she might chime in, but to do it in the way that she did and have, it was not appropriate in any way the way she did. And it was disappointing because it marginalized a massive swath of people.
Over half the country.
It capitalized on this horrible, horrible tragedy. It painted law enforcement in a terrible, terrible, and very inappropriate way. And it created enemies on both sides. That's all it did. All with the goal of energizing the base, pandering to a base. And this narrative that has been created is fiction. This is not real. These people, these leaders come on, they say things that are not in any way true. Not at all. And it causes incidents like this. It is a horrific crime that they're perpetrating from their leadership positions only to gain advantage and donor dollars. That is not okay. That is not okay. And we should, as a populace, be unafraid to call that out. There should have been 500 people saying, no, that's not okay. If you want to be a national leader, and she does, this is not the national leadership I want. This is not how it's done.
Not from my backyard. So that's not what I'm looking at.
That was my 2 cents.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We have to wrap it up.
Yep.
Me and Travis have to travel across town and back.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I think
it's good.
our conversations will continue to get better and better, I think, and this one was better than the last. And appreciate everybody that's tuned in and listened to everything. Travis, I always appreciate you spending the time here. And,
Travis is the MVP over there.
He is.
He's the one making it all happen.
I don't know about that. I just have buttons to push.
Well, you're the MVP. I promise you. If you're not here, none of it works.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very
Without
true.
you, we'd just be talking.
That's right.
And probably pretty quietly.
Yeah.
Darkly lit. No, I'm kidding.
That's right.
So I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I think we've committed as a group here to hopefully meet twice a month, maybe at very least once per month, depending on how schedules fall. I'm trying to grow the podcast, just a space where people can come together like this and have similar conversations. If you want to contribute to that, that would be greatly appreciated. Reach out to me, DM me. Love you all. Thank you guys.
Cool
appreciate it very
podcast.
much. It was fun.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Awesome.
Good evening.